Warning: adult and violent content. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to my channel. Have fun. Smiling Demon, The Arc of Light, authors, GhostFace. Genres: action, adventure, fantasy, Isekai, mystery, psychological, slice of life, tragedy. Summary: humanity once thrived, they now face extinction as creatures that lurked in the shadows have risen to power. After humanity's valiant fight against the threat, then mysteriously failed, leaving the world in terror and uncertainty. As Light embarks on his journey, he discovers that he has lost his memory and sets out to uncover not only his past but also the mystery behind humanity's downfall. Danger lurks around every corner as he navigates through the treacherous terrain, and the line between good and evil is blurred. Will Light be able to find the answers he seeks, or will he meet his own demise in this horror-filled landscape? Only time will tell in this thrilling and mysterious adventure. With a lot of deception to tragedy, twist in the story. I will be posting this on a royal road as well. Prologue: the calamity, the exponential growth of the monstrous population triggered a sense of urgency among governments to safeguard humanity's survival. In a desperate bid to create the ultimate savior, individuals with exceptional abilities, such as Light, were abducted as part of a project to engineer the perfect hero. However, despite the significant investment of resources, this project ultimately failed. The monster's domination over the world led to a regression to medieval times, with remnants of past technological advancements relegated to the status of legend and children's tales. In the aftermath of this catastrophic turn of events, the remaining countries formed an organization called the Alliance of Ethoria. This organization was tasked with the responsibility of safeguarding humanity's survival and delegating the responsibility of protecting mankind. One of their top secret initiatives, Project Athena X, involved the use of magical items or pieces of cells extracted from the bodies of powerful dead monsters and conducting experiments. The project aimed to force individuals with extraordinary abilities to kill monsters and subsequently abduct them to further their research. Thus, the stage was set for a battle for humanity's survival as a mysterious organization sought to harness the power of magical items and the abilities of gifted individuals to create a new breed of monster hunters. As humanity struggled to fend off the monsters and entities unleashed by a mysterious god of gods' request of power, they unwittingly triggered a catastrophic event. The very fabric of reality was torn asunder, causing a tectonic shift that plunged the world into an otherworldly realm. Modern civilization and technology were lost, leaving humanity to survive in a new and dangerous environment where magic and monsters ruled supreme. And so began a new era of struggle for the survivors, as they fought to rebuild and reclaim their world in the face of unimaginable horrors. Light found himself floating in endless darkness, as if he was adrift in the void. He couldn't see anything, but he could hear his own voice narrating in his dream. Suddenly, the darkness was replaced by the cold, sterile walls of a laboratory. He was trapped in a testing room, and scientists were trying to run experiments on him. In his dream, he fought back with his dark abilities, killing the scientists and escaping from the room. But then, Light woke up inside a capsule, his mind racing as he tried to break free. He felt a surge of power within him, and he used his dark abilities to break through the capsule. As he emerged, he looked around in disbelief, trying to make sense of his surroundings. This was not the world he knew, it was an underground laboratory, and he had powers he never imagined. What the hell is going on? Light muttered to himself, his voice echoing in the sterile room. How did I get here? And what are these powers? He felt a mixture of fear and excitement, as he tried to explore his new abilities and discover the truth about his captivity. Light's mind raced as he looked around the sterile laboratory, trying to make sense of his situation. He noticed that the lab was divided into sections, and he saw the number 7 written on the wall in an ancient language that he somehow understood parts of. As he ventured further, Light noticed that all the other capsules in the lab were either empty or broken, with body parts strewn about. But then he saw something that caught his attention. One tube had a body in it with the symbolic number 34 on it. Without hesitation, Light opened the capsule and found a young woman inside, still unconscious. He searched around the lab for something to cover her with, wanting to make her as comfortable as possible when she woke up. As he wrapped the woman, whom he later learned was named Aurora, in a nearby sheet, Light couldn't help but wonder what had happened to him and the other people in the lab. He resolved to explore further, hoping to uncover the truth about his captivity and his newfound powers. Light's curiosity led him to scour the room, looking for any clues that might shed light on his situation. As he searched, he stumbled upon a scorched file with only a small piece of information left intact. The fragment read darkness, which did little to help him understand his predicament. Just as he was about to give up, a ring on his console caught his eye. Notification: System Online Player Profile Light, Name, Light, Class, None, Species, Who inverted ?MA.N, Level Low Rank, 1, Health, 120, Magical Power, MP, 80, Strength, Endurance, Stamina, Agility, Skills, Shadow Step, F, Emotion, Scared, Excited. This is incredible, he muttered to himself. But how did I get here? Who put me in this system? And most importantly, why? Despite the questions that swirled in his mind, Light knew that he needed to focus on unlocking the secrets of his powers and finding a way out of this strange world. Light scrolled through his stats, trying to make sense of the jumbled mess of characters that represented his race. I think it says human, he said uncertainly. But I don't feel like a human. How can I be sure? With a sigh, Light closed the console and stood up. He needed to get some fresh air and clear his head. Maybe then he'd be able to see things more clearly. Light paced back and forth in the small room, waiting for Aura to wake up. As he waited, he decided to test out the only ability he had, Shadow Step, F. He found a shadow on the wall and focused on it, willing himself to move. In a blink of an eye, he appeared on the other side of the room. It was an effective skill, but he needed more practice. As he tried to move again, he accidentally hit his head on the wall. Ow! Okay, note to self, watch out for walls, he muttered, rubbing his forehead. He practiced more and more, noticing that the percentage of the skill was going up. But he was curious as to what would happen when it reached 100%. As time passed without any windows, Light lost track of how much time had gone by. But he was determined to practice his skill. Unaware, he felt a faint glance, as if someone was staring at him. He turned around and saw Aurora casually watching him practice, a grin on her face. Hey! You're awake! Light exclaimed, surprised. Why didn't you say anything? Aurora shrugged. I wanted to see how long you'd keep practicing. Plus, it's kind of amusing to watch you hit your head on the wall. Light rolled his eyes. Thanks for the support. Anyway, check this out. He focused on the shadow again and moved across the room in a flash. Aurora's eyes widened in surprise. Whoa, that's pretty cool. Can you do it again? Light nodded and moved back and forth across the room several times, each time faster than the last. I'm getting better at it, he said with a grin. Aurora chuckled. Looks like you found a new hobby. Maybe we can use that skill to get out of here. Light's grin faded. Yeah, maybe. But first, we need to figure out who put us here and why. As Light listened to Aurora's explanation about the underground laboratory, he was amazed by the information she was giving him. He had never heard of anything like this before. So, this laboratory was trying to create the perfect hero to save their land from Yumi's child? Light asked, trying to make sense of it all. Aurora nodded. Yes, but they were unsuccessful. They eventually abandoned the project and tried to reason with the Queen of the Depths. They came to an agreement to slay her child in order to have peace upon the world of Ethoria. Wait, so what happened to Earth? Why did I say that? What's Earth? Light thought to himself, feeling confused about his own question. Aurora's startled expression quickly faded, replaced by a carefully constructed facade of confusion. Did you hit your head hard on the wall? She asked, her tone sounding overly casual. What's Earth? Her words seemed rehearsed, and there was a hint of something in her eyes that suggested she was hiding something. Light laughed it off. Oh, nothing. Just a joke. So, who is Yumi? Aurora explained that Yumi was the queen of the depths, a powerful being that lived in Frost Peak and controlled the creatures that lived within it. She was feared and respected by the people of Athoria, and her children were just as powerful as she was. As Light listened to Aurora's explanation, he noticed something strange. He had been able to remember Earth, even though he couldn't remember anything about how he got to this new world or even things about the old one he came from. He didn't say anything about it, though. He was still trying to process everything he had just learned. After Light asked about the kingdom that helped and asked for the alliance, Aurora shook her head. I'm sorry, I don't remember. It's been so long, and my memory is not what it used to be. All I know is that Yumi and her alliance fought for years, if not decades, to protect Athoria from the forces of darkness. Aurora continued her story, telling Light about how Yumi was a fierce warrior who vowed to protect her children no matter what. Her kingdom was somewhere in the snowy side of the mountains, but Aurora couldn't pinpoint exactly where. She explained that Yumi's children were just as powerful as she was, and they all worked together to defend Athoria. As Aurora finished her story, Light noticed a magic symbol on her hand that shimmered in the light and changed as it had curves and circles on it. Puzzled, Aurora examined her hand and said, I don't know how this got here, but I'm determined to find out eventually what it is. After a moment of silence, Aurora spoke up again. I think it's time for us to venture through the laboratory and eventually leave. We cannot stay here forever, and there is still much to be done to protect Athoria from the forces of darkness. With that, she led the way out of the room and towards the laboratory. As they finally left Section 7, Light and Aurora found themselves in a dusty laboratory. They could see where the section ended and the main lobby began, but they didn't know which section was the right one for them to leave. As they looked around, Light stumbled upon a sort of map that he could only read due to the ancient symbols. It showed each section, and the section they needed to leave from was Section 1. With the map in hand, they began to make their way up through each section. However, in Section 5, Aurora suddenly let out a sharp stinging pain, causing Light to stop in his tracks. Concerned, he asked if she was okay. I'm fine, Aurora replied, trying to brush it off. But Light could see the pain in her eyes, and he knew something was wrong. As they looked around Section 5, Aurora's hand began to glow, like a beacon showing them what mysterious thing was hiding in the room. They cautiously approached the source of the glow and opened the door, only to see a long hallway with dried up blood and skeleton-like bodies, each step with a bright red underglow of the door. Scared, Light wanted Aurora to go first. She laughed and made a comment about his manhood. What, you want me to protect you? She teased. Light rolled his eyes. No, I just thought you might have more experience with this kind of thing. Aurora nodded. Fair enough. Let's go. Together, they made their way down the eerie hallway, their hearts pounding in their chests. They didn't know what they would find at the end of it, but they knew they had to keep moving forward. Together as they stepped into the room, their eyes widened in amazement at the sight before them. There were shelves upon shelves of artifacts and ancient relics, each one more intriguing than the last. Aurora's eyes fell upon a particular item, and she felt a sharp pain shoot through her hands. Light noticed her discomfort and placed a hand on her shoulder. Are you okay? Aurora shook her head, her eyes fixed on the object. I don't know. This one. It's different. It feels evil. Light frowned, his eyes scanning the room for any signs of danger. What do you mean? Aurora pointed to the artifact, still wrapped in the white cloth. That one. It's giving me the most excruciating pain I've ever felt. I can feel the evil off of it, even though it's wrapped up like that. Light felt a shiver run down his spine as he looked at the object. We should be careful with that one. It seems like it could be dangerous. Notification, analyzing item, the devil's grin, rank, Aurora nodded in agreement. But I think it might be something important that we need. We should take it with us. Light hesitated for a moment before nodding. Okay, but we need to be very careful. We don't know what kind of power it holds. As Light held the cloth that's wrapping the mask, he noticed a small screen had popped up in front of him. It was displaying information about the artifact, but all the details were unknown, except for one chilling message: notification, the mask is smiling at you. Light's heart raced as he turned to Aurora. Can you see this? He asked, pointing to the screen. Aurora shook her head, confused. See what? The screen, right in front of me. It's displaying information about the artifact, but it's all unknown except for this message, Light replied, pointing at the screen. Aurora's eyes widened in shock. I don't see anything, but we need to get out of here. This place is giving me the creeps. Light nodded in agreement and quickly placed the artifact in the portable inventory they had gotten back in Section 6. As soon as he did, the screen disappeared, and the eerie feeling in the room dissipated. I think we need to get this artifact appraised, Aurora said, her voice low. We need to know what we're dealing with. Cautiously, Light nodded in agreement. The portable inventory bag slung over Light's shoulder. As they walked, they couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. They had stumbled upon something powerful and dangerous, and they knew that they needed to be careful with its power. Light and Aurora walked through the unfamiliar place, feeling a sense of unease. As they made their way to the next section, they decided to make small talk to get to know each other. Light: So, Aurora, what kind of things are you interested in? Aurora: I'm not exactly sure. I feel like I'm still trying to figure things out. How about you, Light? Light: Same here. I don't really remember much about my past or where I'm from. It's like starting over completely. Aurora: I know what you mean. It's weird not knowing who you are or where you're from. But at least we have each other on this journey. As they approached the weapons section, Aurora's eyes widened with excitement. Aurora: Whoa, look at all these weapons. I've never really been into this kind of stuff before, but it's kind of cool. Light: Yeah, it is. Do you have any experience with weapons? Aurora: Not really. How about you? Light: I don't remember much, but I feel like I might have had some training in the past. It's strange, everything feels familiar yet unfamiliar at the same time. Aurora: I know what you mean. But hey, let's pick out some weapons and gear just in case we run into trouble on this journey. Light: I'll take this scythe, it looks like it can deal some serious damage. Aurora: Nice choice. I think I'm going to go with this sword. It looks beautiful and feels like it would be effective in battle. Aurora's outfit is both practical and elegant, featuring a form-fitting black leather bodysuit that allows for maximum movement while also providing protection in battle. She wears a long, flowing red cape that billows behind her as she moves, adding a touch of drama to her already captivating presence. Around her waist, Aurora wears a belt adorned with intricate silver and gold filigree, which holds her sword at her side. Aurora's armor, Crimson Vanguard attire, E, gives the user 2% physical strength and endurance. Aurora's common broadsword, F, gives the user 0.05% attack damage. Light Standard Scythe F, gives the user 8% attack damage. Light, great. And I have to say, I really like your outfit. It looks both practical and stylish. Aurora: Thanks, I'm glad you like it. I think it will work well for our journey. Light: Yeah, I think we make a good team. Let's keep moving forward. As Light and Aurora continued through the third section, Light suddenly remembered that he hadn't asked Aurora about her abilities. Light: Hey, Aurora, I forgot to ask earlier. What kind of abilities do you have? Aurora smiled warmly at him. Aurora: I have the ability to manipulate light magic, and my body has been enhanced through an experiment. Light: That's really cool. So, what kind of things can you do with light magic? Aurora: Right now, the only ability I have is called Luminous Blade F. It allows me to create light particles that enhance the power of my sword. The only problem is that it doesn't last very long, and it can actually break the blade if I use it too much. Light: wow, that's a pretty powerful ability. I'm sure we can find a way to make it more sustainable. Aurora: I hope so. It's been a bit of a struggle trying to figure out how to use it effectively. But I'm determined to master it and become a valuable asset to our team. Light: I have no doubt that you will. And I'm sure we'll find other ways to complement each other's abilities as well. Aurora: definitely. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can accomplish together. As Light and Aurora made their way to the second section, their exhaustion was becoming more and more apparent. Light: I can't believe how long we've been walking. I feel like my legs are about to give out. Aurora: I know, right? But we're so close to our destination now. Once we're on the surface, we can rest and recuperate. Light: that sounds amazing. And if you happen to find any animals to hunt, I'm excited to try whatever you cook up. Aurora chuckled. Aurora, you got it. I'll make sure to whip up something delicious for us. As they finally arrived at their destination, they both looked at each other nervously. Light: are you ready to leave this place? Aurora: I am. It's been a strange and frightening journey, but I'm excited to see what's waiting for us on the other side. As they opened the door to Section 1, they were surprised to see that it wasn't as run down as the other sections. Section 1 is like a macabre trophy room, with skulls strewn about the floor, yet compared to the other sections its walls and ceiling remain mostly intact. Aurora: huh, this is strange. It's still pretty creepy, but it looks like it's in better shape than the other sections. Light: yeah, it's definitely strange. But let's not dwell on it too much. We need to focus on getting out of here. They looked up and saw the ladder leading to the surface. Light: this is it. We're finally leaving this place. Aurora: I can't wait. It's been a long and difficult journey, but I have a feeling it's all going to be worth it. As they climbed the ladder, Light's thoughts raced in his head. Light: I wonder what the outside world is going to look like. Will it be vastly different from what we're used to down here? Aurora: I'm sure it will be. But that's what makes it exciting, right? The unknown, the possibility of discovering something new. Light: yeah, you're right. I can't wait to see what kind of adventures are waiting for us out there. As Light slowly opens the door from the underground, he is greeted by the most breathtaking sight he has ever seen. Before him lies a vast forest with trees that he has never seen before. They tower above him with trunks as wide as his outstretched arms, and their leaves shimmer in the sunlight, creating a kaleidoscope of colors. Some of the trees have bark that glows with an otherworldly luminescence, while others have branches that twist and curl like living creatures. The sky above is a brilliant shade of blue, so pure and clear that it looks like it goes on forever. As Light takes in the beauty of this place, he notices the different kinds of animals that roam around the forests. There's the rockhorn deer, a majestic creature with large, sharp rock-like horns. The leaf-winged butterfly flutters by with grace, the wings blending in perfectly with the forest. The thornback boar snorts nearby, its thick, spiky hide making it difficult to hunt. And then there's the firefly fox, whose glowing red fur lights up the dark. Light turns to Aurora, his companion, and he can see the amazement in her eyes. This is amazing, he whispers, his voice filled with awe. Aurora nods, a smile spreading across her face. It truly is amazing, she says, the way that nature can create such beauty is truly a wonder. She pauses for a moment, taking in the sights and sounds of the forest. In this place, I feel so alive. It's like every tree, every creature, every blade of grass is part of a grand design. It's humbling to be a part of it. Light nods in agreement, feeling a sense of warmth in his heart. Yes, it's like we're witnessing something truly special, he says. And as they stand there, surrounded by the wonders of this magical land, Light knows that this moment will stay with her forever. As they continue walking through the forest, Light's eyes scan the surroundings, looking at each animal and plant in awe. He notices that each one has a description of what it can be used for, and he feels a sense of wonder at the vast possibilities. Look at this plant, he says, pointing to a tall, green stalk. It says here that it can be used to make a healing salve. Aurora nods, her eyes wide with interest. That's amazing. It's like everything here has a purpose. Suddenly, Aurora's stomach growls loudly, interrupting their conversation. Light chuckles, teasing her. Looks like someone's hungry. Should have packed more snacks, Aurora. She playfully swats his arm. Hey, you're the one who insisted on exploring further into the forest. Light laughs, knowing that he's just as hungry as she is. Well, let's keep going. Maybe we'll find some edible plants or berries along the way. As they continue their journey, Light and Aurora keep their eyes peeled for any signs of food. They come across a few bushes with small, red berries, and Light picks a handful for them to share. Hey, these are pretty good, Aurora says, popping a berry into her mouth. Thanks for finding them, Light. He grins, feeling satisfied that he can provide for them even in this enchanted forest. No problem. It's all part of the adventure. As he continued his observation, Light's attention was drawn to the thornback boar rank D, a fearsome creature with a thick, spiky hide that made it difficult to hunt. He continued his exploration. Light came across the stoneback bear, rare to find in the wilderness, rank B, a massive creature with a hard, rocky exterior that provided it with extra protection. But it was the mossy moosey that truly captured his heart, with its antlers and fur adorned with the lush greenery of the forest. As his gaze fell upon the frostbite lynx B, Light couldn't help but shiver at the sight of its icy blue eyes and razor-sharp claws. The lynx's superior hunting skills and agility, also rare in the wilderness but mostly can be found in Frostpeak Mountain. As Light surveyed the diverse array of creatures in the forest, he felt a sense of caution wash over him. We have to be really careful with these animals, especially the nightshade panther, an apex predator besides the stoneback bear, that can camouflage itself in dark environments. He thought to himself, aware of the danger it posed to even seasoned hunters. Turning to his companion, he spoke in a hushed tone. We aren't strong enough, so maybe we should lay low from the animals that pose a threat to us, he suggested, his voice tinged with concern. His companion nodded in agreement, acknowledging the wisdom of Light's words. Agreed. Let's observe from a safe distance and avoid any unnecessary risks, they replied, their voice equally measured and cautious. Together, they continued their exploration of the forest, keeping a watchful eye on the creatures around them while maintaining a respectful distance. As they sit down in the grass, enjoying their berries, Light's screen suddenly pops up with a loud sound. Notification: Save a villager, reward, 3 apples that restore 10 horsepower, penalty, none. However, before Light has a chance to react, they hear a woman's voice screaming in terror. They immediately jump to their feet and run towards the source of the sound. As they approach, they see 4 goblins surrounding a young girl. Light's heart races as he realizes that all 4 goblins are level 3. He has never killed anyone before and he's not sure if he's ready to face them. Aurora, on the other hand, doesn't hesitate. She quickly unsheaths her sword and uses her luminous blade, E, to enhance it with light magic. With a swift strike, she kills 2 of the goblins. Light watches in awe as Aurora effortlessly takes down the goblins. He starts to feel nervous and scared, wondering if he can really help. But then he remembers his mission and he knows he has to try. Taking a deep breath, he uses Shadow Step to get behind one of the goblins. With a shaky hand, he swings his scythe and cuts it in half. The other goblin turns to face him, but Light manages to kill it with a quick strike. As the last goblin falls to the ground, the young girl runs towards them, tears streaming down her face. Thank you. Thank you so much. She cries. Aurora smiles at her, but then turns to Light with a stern look. You need to stop second-guessing yourself and help out. We could have lost that girl because you were too scared to act. Light nods, feeling guilty. You're right. I'm sorry. I'll do better next time. As they walk away from the scene, Light can't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. He had faced his fears and helped someone in need, and that was a feeling he would never forget. The little girl thanked Light and Aurora with great appreciation for saving her. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't come along, she said while tears continued to flow down her face. Light feels a sense of warmth in his heart, knowing that they have made a difference in someone's life. He's even more thrilled when he receives his reward, which he quietly adds to his inventory. He doesn't want to shock Aurora with the fact that he has his own inventory, so he keeps it to himself. As soon as Light claimed his reward, a new mission appeared on his screen. Notification: escort the little girl to her village. Reward: increase reputation/trust with the village. Penalty: death of the little girl. Light's face goes white as he reads the penalty. He can feel his heart racing, and he starts to second-guess himself again. But he doesn't want Aurora to worry, so he puts on a brave face and tells her he's fine. As they follow the little girl through the forest, she tells them about her village. Scavenger Rest used to be a peaceful place, she says. But lately, we've been having problems with monsters. And then there are the bandits, the Iron Wolf. They terrorize the village and steal from us, but no one stands up to them. Aurora listens intently, her expression serious. We'll do what we came to help, she says firmly. Light nods, feeling a sense of determination. He knows that they can't let the villagers suffer any longer. They have to stand up to the Iron Wolf and protect the innocent. As they approach the village, Light can see the fear and desperation in the eyes of the villagers. He feels a sense of responsibility weighing heavily on his shoulders, but he knows that he has to do what's right. He takes a deep breath and prepares himself for what's to come. The little girl continued to explain, "We call our village Scavenger Rest because we use the materials from the junkyard to build everything. It's not easy getting those materials though, because there are monsters and bandits that have made the junkyard their territory." Before she could finish, there was a sudden interruption as 5 more goblins appeared. Light's heart skipped a beat as he realized that this was going to be a tough battle. He was still overthinking the situation due to his lack of confidence, but he knew he had to help Aurora. The battle was fierce, with the goblins attacking from all sides. Aurora wielded her sword with precision, swiftly cutting down the enemies one by one. Light, on the other hand, used his two-handed scythe to strike at the goblins. Although he didn't have any weapon techniques yet, he watched Aurora's movements carefully and tried to imitate them as best he could. At one point, Light became distracted and a goblin almost landed a fatal blow on him. But just in time, Aurora saved him by deflecting the attack with her sword. It was a close call, but they managed to defeat the goblins in the end. Both Aurora and Light were panting heavily from the exertion, but they were relieved that they had made it out alive. They took a moment to catch their breath and survey the aftermath of the battle. The ground was littered with goblin corpses and broken weapons, and there was a sense of triumph in the air. The little girl approached them with a grateful smile on her face. "Thank you so much for your help," she said. "You two are truly brave warriors. I don't know what we would have done without you." Aurora and Light exchanged a glance, feeling a sense of pride in their accomplishment. Despite the danger they had faced, as Light and Aurora approached the entrance to Scavenger Rest, the guards immediately noticed the injuries on Light's body and became worried but cautious. "Guard 1, whoa, hold on there. What happened to you? You're all banged up." "Light, we were attacked by a group of goblins on the road." "Guard 2, goblins? That's not good. Did you manage to fend them off?" "Aurora, we did, but not without some injuries. It was a close call." "Guard 1, well, you're lucky to be alive. We'll need to check your weapons before we let you in." "Light, of course. We understand the precautions." As the guards checked their weapons, a small villager girl approached them and teased Light about his injuries. "Girl, huh? Look at you. You're so weak. You needed a girl to save you from those goblins." "Guard 1, hey now, that's not fair. Goblins can be tough opponents." "Light, it's okay, guys. She's just a kid. Aurora and I make a good team. We watch each other's backs." "Guard 2, well, you're lucky to have such a capable partner. Just be careful out there." The group laughed and Light couldn't help but feel embarrassed about being saved by a girl. In his thoughts, He wished he was stronger and didn't need anyone's help. But he knew deep down that he was lucky to have Aurora as his partner, and he promised himself that he would work harder to become a better fighter. As Light and Aurora entered the small village, they were filled with excitement and anticipation. But their hopes were soon dashed as they saw the run-down buildings and unpaved streets. "Guard, welcome to our village. Just a reminder that weapons are allowed, but please be careful." "Light, thank you for the warning. We will." "Aurora, is there an inn where we can rest and get some food?" "Guard, yes, there is an inn down the road. It's not much, but it's better than nothing." As they walked around, a small girl approached them. "Girl, hi there. My name is Rose. Do you need help finding anything?" "Light, thank you, Rose. We would love that." "Rose, well, let me show you our temple. It's the most beautiful building in our village." "Aurora, sure, we'd be happy to see it." Rose led them to the temple, which was surprisingly grand compared to the other buildings in the village. However, it was clear that the temple was built from scrap metal, just like everything else in the village. "Rose, this is our temple. We worship the goddess of metal, Aurea. She is the goddess of creation and transformation, and her magic can turn scrap metal into beautiful, useful objects." "Light, that's fascinating. What does Aurea look like?" "Rose, she is made of pure metal, with shining silver hair and eyes that glow like the sun. She wields a hammer that can shape metal into anything, and her creations are always perfect." "Aurora, she sounds like a powerful goddess." Despite the village's appearance, Light and Aurora couldn't help but feel intrigued by Aurea and her magic. They were excited to learn more about the village and its people, and to see what other secrets it held. "Rose, before we enter the temple, I must warn you that only the chief and certain villagers seeking divine help are allowed inside. It is a sacred place, and we must respect its boundaries." "Light, understood, we won't overstep our bounds. Thank you for the warning." Upon entering, Light and Aurora were greeted by the sight of a weathered old church. The once grand statues of angelic figures were now broken and chipped, their wings and halos worn away by time. Rows of wooden benches stood empty, their surfaces rotting and splintered. Despite the dilapidated state of the temple, a faint air of reverence still hung in the air. Vines had crept their way up the walls and around the altar, weaving a tapestry of greenery that seemed to breathe life back into the abandoned space. However, amidst the decay, there stood a striking metal statue that seemed to gleam in the dim light. The statue was better preserved than the rest of the building, and it stood proudly under the stairs that led to the elder quarters. As Light and Aurora took in their surroundings, they noticed a couple of villagers who had come to seek divine protection. They were kneeling in prayer, their heads bowed in reverence. One of them, an elderly woman with kind eyes, noticed the newcomers and beckoned them over. "Welcome, travelers," she said with a warm smile. "Do not be afraid. We may not have much, but this temple is still a sacred space. It is a place where we come to find solace and guidance in times of need." Her words seemed to resonate with the other villagers, who nodded in agreement. A young man who had been lighting candles stood up and approached Light and Aurora. "Forgive me for interrupting," he said, "but may I ask why you have come to our village? Is there something we can help you with?" Light and Aurora exchanged a glance before responding. "We have come seeking information about a powerful artifact," Aurora explained. "We believe it may be originated somewhere in this area." The villagers exchanged worried glances, and the elderly woman spoke up once more. "I'm afraid we don't know anything about any artifacts," she said. "But we will help you in any way we can. Perhaps the elder may know something more." With that, she gestured towards the stairs, indicating that the travelers should make their way up to the elder quarters. As they climbed the stairs, Light and Aurora couldn't help but feel grateful for the kindness of the villagers. Despite the humble state of their temple, there was a sense of community and camaraderie that made it feel like home. Light and Aurora ascended the stairs to the elder quarters, where they were met by a stern-looking man. His eyes were sharp and piercing, and Light could feel a sense of strength emanating from him. The elder spoke with authority. "Outsiders aren't allowed here. Rose, who are these people, and they seem like they are around here judging on how they look. Rose, who had followed them up the stairs, spoke up in a nervous and stuttering tone. Oh, I'm so sorry, Elder. This is Light and Aurora. They helped one of the villagers' daughters from goblins. The Elder, whose name was Marcellus, assessed the newcomers with a critical eye. I see, he said, his voice laced with suspicion. And what brings you to our village? We are seeking information about a powerful artifact, Aurora replied. We found it in our travels upon coming here. Marcellus's expression hardened. I'm afraid I cannot help you with that. Outsiders are not permitted to meddle in the affairs of our village. Light noticed something strange about the Elder's demeanor. He could feel a sense of killing intent emanating from him, and his gaze seemed to linger on the white cloth that Light was carrying. They had wrapped the mask in it to protect it during their travels. As if sensing Light's thoughts, Marcellus's eyes flickered to the cloth. What is that you are carrying? He asked, his voice low and dangerous. It is an artifact we discovered, Light replied, holding up the cloth to reveal the mask within. We believe it may be connected to the one we are searching for. Marcellus's eyes widened as he gazed upon the mask. Light could almost see the wheels turning in the Elder's mind as he evaluated the object before him. This is very interesting, he muttered to himself. I can feel an evil power emanating from it. Aurora and Light exchanged a worried glance as Marcellus continued to study the mask. It was clear that the Elder was becoming increasingly infatuated with the artifact, and they were unsure of how to proceed. The tension in the room was palpable, and Light could feel his heart racing in his chest. With a swift movement, Light snatched the mask from Marcellus's grip, his hand trembling with anticipation as he wrapped it back in the white cloth. I think it's time we leave, he said in a stuttering but firm tone, the mask burning a hole in his pocket. We've seen enough of your village. Rose and Aurora exchanged a quick glance, both sensing the shift in Marcellus' demeanor. Right, they said in unison, their voices barely above a whisper. I still haven't shown you everything, Rose added hesitantly, her eyes darting nervously between Marcellus and the cloth-wrapped mask. I can come by later if you need me to. Marcellus' cold stare sent shivers down Rose's spine as he spoke through gritted teeth. See that you do, he growled, his mind racing with the possibilities of what the mask could do in his hands. As they made their way out of the village, Marcellus couldn't help but replay the image of the mask in his mind, the power it held calling out to him. He sat down with a calculated calmness, his eyes fixed on the horizon as he contemplated the mask's potential. He knew he couldn't let anyone else possess its power, and he was willing to do whatever it took to keep it for himself. As they walked out of the church, Rose couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. He's never acted like this before, she said in shock and disbelief. I promise he's a really nice man once you get to know him, Light responded with a slight tone. Maybe you don't know him enough. Rose's anger simmered just beneath the surface as she forced a smile. Let's continue with the tour, she said, leading them down the muddy street. The first building they passed was the weapons shop, its walls made of scrap metal and wood salvaged from the junkyard. Inside, blacksmiths worked tirelessly, forging swords and axes for the town's militia. Next to it was a meat shop, its sign made of tarnished copper. The smell of freshly butchered meat wafted through the air, drawing in buyers who wanted food for their families. Further down the road was the town inn, its doors made of sturdy oak. Travelers could rest there for the night, warming themselves by the fire and enjoying a hot meal. Rose stopped in front of a small shop adorned with blooming flowers and vibrant greenery. And this is Aurelia's garden shop, she said politely. She's a well-respected villager who uses her magic to manipulate nature, helping the community thrive. Rose nodded in appreciation before turning back towards the church. I'll head back to see what's going on with Marcellus, he said before disappearing down the street. Rose couldn't shake the feeling of dread that settled in the pit of her stomach as she continued the tour, the memory of Marcellus's cold stare still fresh in her mind. Aurelia, hello there, I'm Aurelia. It's nice to meet you. Light, nice to meet you too. Rose spoke very highly of you. Aurelia, oh, she's too kind. I just do what I can to help the village. I find that working with plants and nature is a very calming and rewarding experience. Would you like to see my garden? Light, we'd love to. Thank you for the invitation. Aurelia's personality is warm and welcoming. She speaks with a gentle tone and is very humble about her abilities. She is also very passionate about her work and enjoys sharing it with others. As they walk through the garden, she points out different plants and tells them interesting facts about them. She also takes the time to listen to their questions and answers them with enthusiasm. Overall, Aurelia is a kind and caring person who is dedicated to helping others and nurturing nature. As Light looks at Aurelia, he notices a screen popping up in front of him. It displays her level 9, and her emotions. He can see that she's worried about something, but he decides not to ask about it just yet. Aurelia then uses her magic ability, which she calls Bloom Heal, to heal Light's injuries. It uses a type of flower to heal wounds. After she finishes healing him, Light finally asks her if she's okay or if there's something she's worried about. Aurelia takes a deep breath and begins to explain the hardship that the village of Scavengers Rest has been facing. She tells Light about how the neighboring kingdom, which is supposed to protect them, hasn't been providing any help. Instead, they've been dealing with a group of bandits called the Iron Wolf and their boss, Jax. The bandits make us pay fees for protection from the neighboring goblins and hobgoblins who try to trespass into our town, Aurelia explains. And the worst part is, the guards can't do anything about it. We have so few guards, and none of them are experienced enough to take on the bandits. Light listens intently to Aurelia's explanation, feeling a sense of compassion for the villagers. He asks her if there's anything he can do to help, and she looks at him with gratitude in her eyes. Actually, there is something you can do, she says. We need someone to help us take down the Iron Wolf and put an end to their tyranny. If you're willing to help us, we would be forever grateful. As Aurelia asks for help in eliminating the Iron Wolf, Light feels a sense of duty and obligation wash over him. He knows that he doesn't have a choice but to accept the mission and take on the Iron Wolf leader, despite the potential dangers and risks involved. As he considers the task, another message pops up on his screen, notification, eliminate the Iron Wolf leader, reward, penalty, Light takes a moment to weigh the potential risks and rewards, but ultimately, he knows that he must accept the mission and do whatever it takes to help the people of Scavengers Rest and put an end to the Iron Wolf's tyranny. He thinks to himself, this may be a dangerous mission, but I must do what I can to help the people in need. I don't have a choice but to accept this mission, and I will do whatever it takes to succeed and make a difference. As Light and Aurora continues to roam around Aurelia's garden shop, Light suddenly received another notification but a side mission on his screen. He quickly read the details and turned to Aurora. We need to practice our skills before we try and take on the Iron Wolf, he said, a hint of urgency in his voice. Aurora looked at him with surprise. What are you talking about? Light made a good point to Aurora, suggesting that they should try to level up and explore their capabilities before proceeding with the main mission as the side mission requires. Although he couldn't show her the mission details on his screen, he emphasized the importance of honing their skills and abilities through this side mission. Aurora nodded thoughtfully. That sounds like a good idea. But how do we level up? Aurelia, who was tending to her plants nearby, overheard their conversation and walked over to them. I have an idea, she said. There's a classy dungeon not too far from here that you could explore. It'll give you a chance to train and level up. Light and Aurora listened intently as Aurelia explained what a dungeon was and how it worked. Each dungeon has a boss that you need to defeat to get loot like gear or weapons. The higher the rank of the dungeon, the better the loot. But you need to be careful, especially for dungeons from E to SSS. Some of them have intelligent monsters that can come out and cause trouble in the world. Aurora's eyes widened in surprise. That sounds dangerous. Are you sure we're ready for that? It can be dangerous, Aurelia admitted. but it's also a great opportunity to level up and hone your skills. Just be sure to prepare well before you go in. Light and Aurora nodded, determined to take on the challenge. Aurelia handed them some potions and other supplies, and they set off towards the dungeon, their hearts pounding with excitement and anticipation. As Aurora and Light walked down the winding trail, the dense forest canopy overhead shielded them from the sun's harsh rays. A cool breeze blew through the trees, rustling the leaves and carrying with it the fragrant scent of blooming wildflowers. Aurora looked over at Light and noticed the worried expression on his face. "Is something bothering you, Light?" she asked, concerned. Light's thoughts were consumed with self-doubt. "What if I'm not strong enough to face the monsters in the dungeon?" he mused. "What if I let Aurora down?" He struggled to shake off his negative thoughts but found himself sinking deeper into a pit of despair. The fear of failure weighed heavily on his mind, threatening to sabotage their mission. Aurora noticed that Light was lost in thought and called out to him again, this time louder. "Light, are you okay?" With a start, Light snapped out of his reverie and turned to face Aurora. "Huh? Oh, sorry. I'm fine," he replied, forcing a smile. But Aurora could sense that something was still troubling him. "Are you sure?" she pressed on. Light hesitated for a moment before admitting, "Honestly, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. I'm not sure if I'm ready for this." Aurora placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "It's okay to feel scared, Light. But remember, we're in this together. We'll face whatever comes our way, and we'll do it as a team." Light looked at Aurora, taking comfort in her words. He felt his confidence starting to return, and he knew that with Aurora by his side, he could overcome any obstacle. As they continued down the path, Light's doubt slowly melted away, replaced by a renewed sense of determination. He knew that the dungeon ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to face it head-on. As Aurora and Light traversed deeper into the forest, they stumbled upon a cave hidden behind a thick curtain of vines. The sound of faint bleating echoed from within, and they cautiously made their way inside. What greeted them was a strange, lamb-like creature with shaggy white fur and piercing red eyes. It stood on two legs and had long, curved horns jutting from its forehead. The creature bared its teeth and snarled, ready to defend its territory. Aurora and Light braced themselves for battle, but as they prepared to attack, they noticed something strange etched into the cave wall behind the monster. It was a statue of the same creature they were facing, with a description etched beneath it. The lambent horned beast, level 10 monster known for its brute strength and vicious nature. Defeating this creature will grant you access to the dungeon boss. As Light read the description, a screen popped up in front of him. The screen displayed a message, notification, defeat all lambent horned beasts to progress to the dungeon boss. Light's heart raced with excitement and fear. He knew that defeating this creature would be no easy task, but he was determined to complete their mission. With a nod to Aurora, they charged into battle. As Aurora and Light charged towards the lambent horned beast, Light felt a sense of unease as he glanced at Aurora's level. She was a level 5, while he was only a level 3. The gap between their levels was significant, and Light couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. But he quickly pushed his doubts aside and focused on the battle at hand. With a quick nod, he signaled to Aurora to grab his hand. Together, they executed a coordinated attack, with Light using his Shadow Step ability to teleport behind the monster while Aurora launched a powerful strike with her sword. But the lambent horned beast was quick to react, blocking Aurora's attack with its powerful horns and turning to face Light. Light swung his scythe with all his might, but the monster dodged his strike and retaliated with a fierce counterattack. Aurora quickly sprang into action, launching a flurry of strikes with her sword while Light used his Shadow Step to dodge the monster's attacks and deliver powerful blows. The battle was intense, with both sides exchanging devastating attacks. As Aurora and Light faced off against the monstrous beast, they quickly sprang into action, each utilizing their unique abilities to gain the upper hand in battle. Aurora launched a flurry of precision strikes with her sword, while Light's Shadow Step allowed him to deftly dodge the monster's powerful attacks and deliver devastating blows. The fight was a true test of their skill and endurance, with both sides exchanging savage attacks that shook the ground beneath their feet. As the monster's HP began to dwindle, it entered a berserk state, its physical attacks growing stronger and more relentless. Though the beast seemed to barely feel pain, its movements became stiff and uncoordinated, a weakness that Aurora and Light were quick to exploit. Despite the intense battle, the duo remained focused and determined, their eyes locked on the prize of victory. As the final blow was struck, the monster let out a deafening roar and crashed to the ground, defeated. Light quickly collected the monster's horn, his screen displaying the item's potential for material use. As they caught their breath and assessed their gains from the fight, Light's screen suddenly lit up with a new skill, a testament to the experience they had gained in the heat of battle. Light quickly collected the monster's horn, his screen displaying the item's potential for material use. As they caught their breath and assessed their gains from the fight, Light's screen suddenly lit up with a new skill, a testament to the experience they had gained in the heat of battle. Aurora, too, could feel her own magical abilities growing stronger, a sensation that filled her with a sense of pride and accomplishment. As they rested, however, the sound of more monsters could be heard in the distance. "And there's more?" Light exclaimed, his voice tinged with a mixture of disbelief. Aurora merely chuckled, her mind already focused on the next challenge. "Indeed there is, my friend. But fear not, together, we shall face whatever challenges come our way and emerge victorious." Level Light 5, Skills, Shadow Step E Shadow Evasion If. As they made their way deeper into the cave, Aurora used her Illuminate skill to help them see and navigate through the darkness. Light asked if the magic was new, and Aurora replied that she had always known the spell but had never had the chance to use it before, given the sunny conditions outside. However, the magical light attracted the attention of 3 lambent horned beasts, and the duo knew they were in for a tough fight. As he turns to look at Aurora, Level 7, Skills, Luminous Blade E Illuminate F Light Magic Spear B, he was surprised and a little suspicious, wondering to himself how she could have acquired such an advanced skill at her level. Was it a bug? He decided not to mention it to Aurora and instead focused on their strategy. "Channel your magic into a spear shape," he instructed her quietly, noting the beasts closing in on them. "I'll distract them with my shadow evasion. When I give you the signal, unleash your light spear." Aurora nodded, and Light sprang into action, using his shadow evasion to dodge the beast's attacks and keep them occupied. As they closed in, he gave Aurora the signal, and she channeled her magic into a spear-like shape, unleashing a powerful beam of light that struck the beasts with incredible force. The creatures were staggered by the attack, allowing Aurora and Light to finish them off with a series of swift strikes. As they caught their breath, Light couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. "That was a close one," he said, grinning at Aurora. "But we make a pretty good team." Aurora smiled back. "Indeed we do. But we shouldn't get too complacent. There's no telling what other dangers this cave holds." Light nodded, impressed by Aurora's level-headedness. "You're right. Let's keep moving and stay vigilant." As they continued walking through the dungeon, Light couldn't help but feel his body becoming lighter and stronger with each step. He knew he was leveling up, but he kept it to himself and didn't mention it to Aurora. Aurora, on the other hand, seemed to be growing in magical power with each level she gained. Light could sense her presence becoming more potent and vibrant, but he didn't say anything about it either. After defeating a group of level 10 monsters, Light and Aurora took a moment to catch their breath and rest. Light couldn't help but notice Aurora's beauty as she sat down next to him, her black hair shining in the dim dungeon light, her muscular build evident in the way she moved, and her blue eyes sparkling with determination. Lost in thought, Light didn't realize that Aurora had been talking to him until she waved her hand in front of his face. "Light, are you okay? You seem distracted." Light shook his head and smiled. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just thinking about our progress so far and how strong we're becoming." Aurora nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. "It's amazing, isn't it? I can feel my magic growing stronger with each battle, but I still can't see my abilities like you can." Light nodded, knowing exactly what she meant. He could see his abilities and stats improving with each level, but he kept it to himself. He didn't want to make Aurora feel inadequate or left out. As they continued on their journey through the dungeon, Light couldn't help but admire Aura's strength and beauty. He knew that they were becoming a formidable team, and he was grateful to have her by his side. As Light and Aurora approached the boss door, they couldn't help but feel a sense of apprehension. The door was massive, easily twice their height, and made of a thick, silvery metal. In the center of the door was the head of a lamb-like monster, its horns twisted and gnarled. As they got closer, two more lambent horned beasts emerged from the shadows, brandishing their deadly spear axes. Light and Aurora drew their weapons and prepared for battle. The beasts charged at them with a fierce determination, but Light and Aurora were ready. They dodged the beasts' attacks and struck back with swift and powerful blows. Despite their opponent's strength, the two adventurers fought with a fierce determination. With each strike, they gained more experience and grew stronger. Finally, the beasts lay defeated at their feet, and Light and Aurora leveled up once more, Light level 7, Aurora level 9. As they approached the boss door once again, they tried to push it open, but it wouldn't budge. Aurora teased Light about his strength, but even together, they couldn't move the door. Frustrated, they looked around for clues. And that's when Light noticed something odd. The horns on the door were missing, and they had only found one horn on each of the beasts they had defeated. Realizing what they had to do, they retrieved the horns and placed them in their rightful places on the door. With a loud creaking, the door slowly swung open, revealing the boss chamber beyond. As they stepped inside, they were hit with an overwhelming sense of fear. The presence of the boss was almost suffocating, and Light and Aurora knew they were in for the fight of their lives. As Light and Aurora entered the boss chamber, they were met with a terrifying sight. The room was dark and ominous, with high ceilings and shadowy corners. In the center of the room stood the thundering black ram, a lambent horned beast like they had never seen before. Its fur was a deep, dark black, with streaks of silver running down its back. Its horns were long and twisted, crackling with electricity. The beast towered over them, standing on its back legs and radiating an overwhelming aura of power. Light could sense that this was no ordinary monster. He could see its level 15, and knew that they were going to have to fight for their lives. He drew his scythe, while Aurora brandished her sword. The boss let out a deafening roar that shook the very foundations of the chamber, and charged towards them with incredible speed. The battle was intense, with the thundering black ram using its terrifying strength to deliver heavy blows and inflict massive damage. Its lightning abilities were immediately evident as it sent powerful bolts of electricity towards them, forcing them to dodge and weave to avoid getting hit. As the thundering black ram charged towards them, Light drew upon his light a shadow evasion, F, and shadow step, E, to quickly dodge out of the way of the boss's initial attack. Meanwhile, Aurora activated her luminous blade, E, imbuing her sword with a radiant energy that lit up the dark chamber. The boss let out another deafening roar as it swung its scythe at Light, who deftly sidestepped the attack. The two clashed in a shower of sparks, with the thundering black ram's lightning abilities crackling through the air. Aurora joined the fray, her luminous blade striking true and dealing significant damage to the monster. But the boss was not easily defeated, and it retaliated with a powerful blast of lightning that sent the two heroes tumbling backwards. Undaunted, Light got back to his feet and continued to dance around the boss, using his shadow step to evade its attacks. Aurora continued to hack away at the monster with her luminous blade, her skill and experience evident in her fluid movements. Finally, after a grueling battle that seemed to last for hours, Light landed a decisive blow on the thundering black ram, taking out a significant portion of its H.P. bar. As Aurora light magic spear landed a decisive blow on the thundering black ram, the monster let out a deafening roar and stumbled backwards. Light noticed that the boss's H.P. bar had depleted by 1/3, indicating that there were still 2 more challenging phases of the battle to come. The thundering black ram suddenly changed its fighting style, becoming more aggressive and unpredictable. It started using more powerful lightning attacks, which Light and Aurora had to dodge with lightning-fast reflexes. The monster also began to channel its lightning in a way, causing it to pierce through the ground and shoot up in unpredictable patterns. Light and Aurora quickly realized that they needed to come up with a new strategy if they were going to survive the second phase of the battle. Aurora used her spear to create a protective barrier around the two of them, while Light used his shadow step to quickly move around the boss and strike from unexpected angles. As the thundering black ram continued to unleash its deadly lightning attacks, Light observed that each bolt of lightning had a unique pattern and frequency. He quickly realized that the boss's lightning attacks were not random, but followed a specific pattern. Using her tactical mind, Aurora began to anticipate the boss's moves and dodge its lightning attacks with ease. She then started using his light spear to channel the boss's lightning attacks back at it, dealing significant damage to its H.P. bar. The boss was clearly caught off guard by Aurora's unexpected tactic, and started to become more cautious in its attacks. Light and Aurora used this opportunity to continue their assault, landing blow after blow on the monster and slowly depleting its second H.P. bar. Light and Aurora had been battling the boss for what felt like hours. They had managed to deplete 2 of its health bars, but the monster was proving to be a formidable opponent. As they continued their assault, the boss suddenly let out a loud roar, and an intense magical energy began to emanate from its body. Light and Aurora felt their hearts sink as they realized that the monster was entering a berserk state. Suddenly, as the monster let out another thunderous roar, Light and Aurora heard a faint crack coming from behind them. They turned to see that the stone statue they had been using as cover had been shattered, and in the monster's hand was a new weapon, a sword that looked like it had been carved from the same material as the statue. The boss swung its massive sword with renewed ferocity, and Light and Aurora struggled to keep up. But as they fought, they noticed that the beast seemed to be getting stronger with each passing moment. Light and Aurora exchanged a worried glance. They had no idea where the monster had gotten the sword from, but they knew that it couldn't be good news. As Aurora blocked a powerful blow from the monster's sword, the force of the impact sent her flying across the room and crashing into a wall. She lay there, unmoving. Light watched in horror as Aurora fell, and time seemed to stand still. He knew that he had to act fast if they were going to have any chance of winning this fight. As Light tried to muster up the courage to lay an attack on the beast, everything froze as if time had stopped. He looked around in confusion, trying to make sense of what was happening. He reached out to touch the beast, but his hand passed right through it, as if it wasn't even there. Suddenly, he saw a faint shadow figure in the distance. As he approached it, the figure turned around, revealing an unsettling sight. It was a distorted version of himself, with a twisted and malevolent grin on its face. "Finally, we meet," the figure said in a chilling and distorting tone. "You haven't changed one bit, have you? Always getting yourself into these kinds of situations. And now, you've even managed to drag an innocent person into the mix." The figure let out a low, menacing laugh. "I can't tell who the real monster is here, this beast, or you," it said, its voice dripping with malice and contempt. Light felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead. He had never experienced anything like this before, and he had no idea what was happening to him. Who are you?" he stammered. The figure just grinned wider. "I am you, my dear Light. The part of you that you've been trying to ignore for far too long. But now, I'm here to show you the truth, that you're not as strong or as capable as you think you are. That you're just a scared little child, pretending to be a hero." Light felt a surge of anger and defiance rise up within him. "That's not true," he shouted. "I am strong. I am capable. And I will defeat this beast, no matter what you say." The shadow figure towered over Light, its voice distorted and malicious. "Ha ha, what makes you think you can take on this beast alone?" the shadow taunted, its grin widening. "I really hate it when you play weak." Light felt the weight of the shadow's words pressing down on him, tempting him with the promise of unlimited power. "You have all this power and don't know what to do with it," the shadow continued, its voice dripping with contempt. Why don't you let me take over? All you have to do is take out the mask from the dimensional bag and put it on. For a moment, Light was conflicted. He knew that the Shadow's offer came with a price, but the allure of more power was hard to resist. But then, with a determined glint in his eye, Light spoke up. I don't need your power to win this fight, he said firmly. My own strength is enough to face this beast and emerge victorious. The Shadow let out a mocking laugh. Your own strength? Don't make me laugh, it sneered. You're nothing without me. You'll never be strong enough to defeat this beast on your own. But Light refused to be swayed. I may not be as strong as you, but I have something you'll never have, the courage to face my challenges head on, and the determination to see them through to the end, he said, his voice steady. The Shadow growled in frustration, its grip on Light weakening. Fine, it spat. But don't say I didn't warn you. And with those words, it dissipated into the darkness, leaving Light to face his foe alone. The time slowly started winding back to its normal state. As this is happening, Light is trying to find a way to defeat this beast alone. Light, there's no way I can do this with disbelief and playful way. Without Aurora, I don't think I can handle this, but I know if she was in my shoes she would fight as if our lives depended on it, so that's what I need to do, Light says in confidence with a fire roaring in his eyes. As Light continues to think, he gets a notification that pops up. The mask is watching you. Light, shocked by the message, wondering if it was the mask that was showing trying to manipulate him earlier. He shook the feeling off and focused with the task at hand. The beast slowly moves, then starts moving in normally, with it gripping the stone sword, it pour lighting magic crackling the sword as well as the air around it. As Light charged towards his opponent with a frontal assault, Thundering Black Ram was already aware of his adversary's intentions. The beast's blade, poised and ready, sliced through the air in a vertical strike aimed at Light's path. Despite Light's swift attempts to reposition himself using his shadow step, he was unable to evade the attack entirely. The impact caused him to taste blood and cough it up, a warning of the danger that lay ahead. With a malevolent smile, Thundering Black Ram spoke to Light in a voice that sent shivers down his spine. The beast's words were laced with a terrifying poetry that dripped with malice. It has been ages since I have spoken to a human, the beast said, its voice slow and deliberate. But fear not, for you shall join the ranks of those who have fallen before me. I will consume your friend in front of you, as you watch, begging me to stop. And once I have had my fill, I will keep you as my plaything, for it has been so lonely in this dungeon. The beast's eyes sparkled with a twisted delight as it continued to speak. You are unlike any human I have faced before. But make no mistake, you will fall just like the rest. And when I defeat you, you will have no choice but to stay here with me. I will break you, mold you, and keep you as my loyal servant. Thundering Black Ram's words were filled with both terror and temptation, as if offering Light a twisted gift of power and control. But Light knew that there was no escape from the beast's grasp, and that his fate would be decided in the upcoming battle. As Light faced his opponent, beads of sweat trickled down his forehead, betraying his apprehension. Despite his fears, he refused to be defined by others' perceptions of him. I am tired of being underestimated, he declared with conviction. I have the power of darkness, but I choose to wield it my way. My courage and determination make me who I am, Light. As if on cue. Notification: requirements have been met. Rank A, skill, Dark Rebirth. Dark Rebirth, a skill that allows me to revive myself upon defeat, he muttered, but at the cost of losing a portion of my own soul, he added, realizing the danger. Despite the potential risks, Light felt a surge of confidence within him. He knew that he was ready to face his opponent, no matter how long it took. I don't care if it takes days, weeks, or even months to defeat you, he declared boldly. I will bring you down, no matter what it takes. With his newfound abilities and unwavering determination, Light was ready to face any challenge that lay ahead. Despite his low HP, Light refused to back down. He charged towards the enemy, utilizing her shadow evasion to dodge the beast's attacks. However, he was unable to evade the lightning that crackled around the beast's sword. The jolt hit him hard, leaving him paralyzed and vulnerable. The beast sneered down at him, its eyes glinting with malice. "You were mildly amusing, I suppose," it said dismissively. "But in the end, you're just like all the others who have dared to face me. Weak and easily defeated." With those words, the beast raised its sword and brought it down upon Light, slicing through him effortlessly. Light fell to the ground, helpless and defeated. The beast turned its attention to Aurora, its eyes narrowing as it contemplated its next move. Finally, it growled menacingly. "I can feast on the one I truly desire." It began to stalk towards her, its movements slow and deliberate, as if savoring the anticipation of what was to come. As the beast drew closer to Aurora, he felt an unfamiliar energy emanating from Light's lifeless body. A dense magic seemed to be pouring out of him, and the sound of Light's body reassembling itself filled the room. The beast was stunned as he heard a third heartbeat, one that he thought he had silenced forever. "How can this be?" he wondered. The beast turned its attention to Aurora, its eyes narrowing as it contemplated its next move. Finally, it growled menacingly. "I can feast on the one I truly desire." It began to stalk towards her, its movements slow and deliberate, as if savoring the anticipation of what was to come. As the beast drew closer to Aurora, he felt an unfamiliar energy emanating from Light's lifeless body. A dense magic seemed to be pouring out of him, and the sound of Light's body reassembling itself filled the room. The beast was stunned as he heard a third heartbeat, one that he thought he had silenced forever. "How can this be?" he wondered. Suddenly, Light's eyes snapped open, his body fully healed and restored. He stood up, a newfound strength coursing through his veins. Though he felt as if he had lost a piece of his humanity, he paid it no mind and instead focused on the beast a few paces away. With a confident smile, he spoke. "Well, well, well. Look who's back from the dead. And here I thought I had finished you off. But it seems fate has other plans for us." The beast was taken aback by Light's sudden revival. "I thought I killed you," he muttered, his voice filled with confusion. Light shrugged. "Apparently not. But let's not dwell on the past. We have unfinished business, you and I." He cracked his knuckles, ready for round two. With a swift twirl of his scythe, Light's persona shifted into a more ominous form. The air around him grew colder as his eyes glinted with an otherworldly intensity. He could feel the power flowing through his veins, pulsing with the energy of his resurrection. The beast before him trembled with fear, sensing the danger that emanated from the Reaper. "I think with this newfound strength, I can take you on my own," Light spoke with a chilling undertone, his voice dripping with the promise of death. "Shall we?" Before the beast could even react, Light was already upon him, his scythe slicing through the air with lethal precision. The creature tried to defend itself, but its efforts were in vain. Light's attacks were too swift and too powerful, leaving the monster in a state of utter shock and terror. How can you suddenly be this strong?" stammered the beast, struggling to keep itself upright. What is this?" Light's response was cold and calculating, dripping with malevolence. "This is the power of death," he said with a twisted grin. "And you are its next victim." The ageless creature was gripped by an overwhelming sensation it had never before experienced. Its spine chilled, and sweat dripped from its face, as it confronted the power of this primal emotion. This moment would be seared into its consciousness, a reminder of the unknown terrors that lurked ahead, which was known as fear. Light relentlessly continued his assault on the thunder-black ram, wielding his scythe with increasing precision and steadily whittling away at the creature's health points. In a desperate attempt to incapacitate Light, the beast unleashed a shock wave from its roar, hoping to immobilize him. However, Light remained unfazed, boldly taunting the beast with a defiant hand gesture that seemed to challenge it to bring its best. Enraged by this display of fearlessness, the thunder-black ram focused its energy into its sword and unleashed a fierce, slicing attack imbued with lightning energy. The attack repeatedly struck Light with deadly accuracy, until a cloud of dust obscured the beast's vision, causing it to pause and wait anxiously to see if Light had survived the onslaught. With a fan-like motion, Light twirled his weapon, his face contorted into a malicious grin. Unfazed by the attack, he stood tall, emanating an aura of deadly intent. Ha! Do you remember your words, claiming that I'm no different from the humans you slaughtered? He sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. Well, you're about to learn how wrong you were. I'm not just toying with you, I'm savoring every moment of your agony. You should feel honored that I'm putting so much effort into your death. He paused, his eyes glinting with a cold intelligence. But don't worry, I'll make it quick. Pain is such a waste of time on you. With a focused intensity, Light channeled his magic into the edge of his blade, slowly building up his energy. The beast, sensing the danger, did everything in its power to stop him. It struck him with lightning, unleashed blasts of energy from its mouth, but Light remained steadfast, enduring the onslaught as he poured his all into his blade. Despite being surged with lightning magic, Light stood strong, his eyes closed in concentration as he continued to channel his energy. And then, in a blinding flash of light, the blade dissipated, leaving a trail of crackling energy in its wake. With the lightning still crackling around him, Light made a move similar to the beast's, but with a ferocity that far outmatched its own. With a grunt of effort, he swung his blade with all his might, slicing the beast's head clean off in a single, swift motion. As the beast fell to the ground, lifeless, Light stood over it, a menacing grin spreading across his face. You should have known better than to mess with me, he said, his voice dripping with malice and contempt. But I suppose that's what makes you beasts. Weak and foolish. As the flood of new notifications inundated the invisible screen before him, Light frantically dug through the deluge of information, his persona snapping back to normalcy as he finally turned around. Did I really do that? He exclaimed, his memory failing him as he struggled to recall the events that had transpired just moments ago. I remember fighting with all my might against the beast, but after that nothing. Bewildered by his own lack of recollection, Light dismissed the matter for the time being, turning to check on Aurora, who remained unconscious on the ground. Little did he know, however, that during the fierce battle, Aurora had been feigning unconsciousness, her eyes surreptitiously peering open as she silently witnessed the entire ordeal unfold. Is he starting to remember himself? She pondered to herself, keeping her observations and suspicions to herself for the time being. Light surveyed the treasure and gazed at Aurora, weighing his options. Meanwhile, Aurora was trying her best to pretend to be unconscious, but couldn't help but feel a little annoyed that Light wasn't helping her up. With a sly grin, Light announced, well, looks like we've hit the jackpot. But let's not be too hasty, my dear. I think I'll take my time with this one. Aurora's inner monologue was less than impressed with Light's antics. Why isn't he helping me up yet? Ugh, he's so greedy. As Light perused the treasure, he found a variety of useful items. There was a stone blade, imbued with lightning magic that could be extracted and used on another weapon or item. The thunder ram fur and horns were also useful for crafting and could fetch a pretty penny on the market. Light also found a skill scroll for telepathy, allowing him to communicate with anyone within 10 feet of him. And of course, there were 30 shiny silver coins to add to their stash. Little did Light know, Aurora was faking her unconsciousness and was fully aware of his shenanigans. As Light continued to rummage through the treasure, Aurora couldn't contain her frustration any longer and put on her best pouting face. So, you were just going to leave me there while you looted everything for yourself? Not even willing to share? She grumbled. Light responded with a playful tone, oh, come on, my dear. I was going to check on you eventually. Besides, you're much stronger than me, so you don't really need any of this stuff, do you? He chuckled at his own joke, but Aurora wasn't amused. With a scowl on her face, Aurora marched towards Light, making herself look more intimidating. She landed a swift smack on the back of Light's head and demanded, at least give me the stone blade and 15 silver pieces. Feeling the pain, Light relented, okay, fine. But we don't even know the currency of this world yet, so why do you want it? Aurora shot him a withering glare, give it to me now. Don't make me use my mom voice. As Light handed over the items he had retrieved, he couldn't help but feel curious about how the woman had suddenly regained consciousness. "Excuse me, but weren't you unconscious just moments ago? I'm curious as to how you managed to wake up so suddenly," he inquired with a hint of suspicion in his voice. Aurora shifted her gaze to the left and explained, "Well, it seems that I have somehow acquired a new magical ability. After witnessing your battle with that beast, I feel that I have become stronger and gained the power of divine healing, a basic F-rank healing spell that can restore a small amount of health. As I felt my wounds starting to heal, I managed to awaken and was surprised to see a plump rat nibbling on some cheese," she added with a comical comparison to Light's appearance. Light glanced at his notifications, his eyes quickly scanning the text. He read the descriptions of his acquired passive skill Shadow Mending, F, allowing him to steal a piece of his enemy's shadow when he successfully evaded or blocked their attacks, converting it into healing energy and magic power that restored his health and mana, and shadow evasion upgrading. The latter had improved from an F rank to a D rank, granting him greater agility and speed when dodging shadow-based attacks. "Let's make our way back to Aurelia," Light said, rolling his eyes. "I'm sure she's worried about us." As they walked along the rocky trail leading back to the village, Light's mind raced with thoughts of the battle they had just emerged from. He couldn't help but feel grateful for the new skills he had acquired, and wondered how he could use them to his advantage in future battles. "Looks like I'll have to brush up on my shadow evasion techniques," he mused aloud, a slight grin tugging at the corner of his lips. "But with shadow mending, I should be able to keep myself in the fight for longer. It's all about strategy, after all." Name, Light, Level, 10, Species, H. Ma. N, Title, None, H. P. 1200, MP, 1500, Strength, Endurance, Agility, Speed, Skill, Shadow Step, E, Shadow Evasion, D, Passive, Shadow Mending F. "Why do the answers continue to evade me?" he mused, unable to ascertain the true extent of his enhanced strength beyond a mere feeling. As they journeyed back to the village to deliver the news to Aurelia, curious Light surreptitiously studied Aurora's skills, captivated by the enigmatic and mysterious nature of her abilities. Name, Aurora, Level, 11, Skills, Illuminate F. Luminous Blade, E, Light Magic Spear B. Divine Healing, F. It seems that she has only acquired one new skill, and on top of that, none of her existing ones have ranked up. I suppose I have more questions than answers. Who has the power to grant me this ability to observe someone's growth, and why? They approached Aurelia Garden Shop and opened the door. "We're back," Aurora exclaimed enthusiastically. As she tended to her garden, she heard her visitors' voices and was surprised to see Aurora and Light. "You guys are back early," she said, shocked. "What happened in the dungeon?" Light and Aurora explained what had happened, how the battle has been fierce, and how they had fought for their lives. "Honestly, I passed out when the beast hurled me against the wall," Aurora said. "I honestly don't remember what happened in the fight. After Aurora passed out, the beast and I fought, and I knew I wasn't a match for him. But then, the next minute, the beast was lying on the floor with his head severed and his body covered in blood," Light added. "We did manage to get a little stronger, though I still don't think it's enough to take on the Iron Wolf." "I believe we still need to get stronger," said Aurora. "Besides, Aurora, it's very odd that you don't remember what happened. By the way, what happened to the supplies I gave you guys? They should have helped or at least made the dungeon less stressful," Aurelia said. Aurora's mind drifted back to the dungeon, where she and Light were like two squirrels fighting over a single nut. "Light, stop hogging all the supplies!" she shouted. "I wouldn't have to if you knew how to heal," Light retorted, his cheeks puffed out like a squirrel's. As they struggled over the potions, their grip slipped, and the vials tumbled to the ground, shattering into a million pieces. It was like watching a squirrel try to balance on a tightrope while juggling acorns. Back in the present, Light and Aurora were still reeling from their financial mishap. "Well, We used them all, Light admitted, his eyes downcast. Aurora nodded in agreement, adding, but we still have a few items from our adventure that we don't know what to do with. Light grinned mischievously. Yeah, I guess we'll just have to trade them for a lifetime supply of acorns or something. Too bad Aurelia forgot to give us the memo on how money works around here. Aurelia looked at Light with her best puppy dog eyes. Oh, I'm so sorry guys. It must have slipped my mind, she said apologetically. Around the world, 50 copper coins equal 1 silver coin, and then 50 silver coins equal 1 gold coin. The market varies depending on the demand for things, but every monster inside them has a magical core that can be sold. I'm sure Rose would know more about that than me, though. Light groaned inwardly. Oh man, we forgot about the other monsters. Damn it, I'm such a noob when it comes to this stuff. Hopefully, the Black Ram corpse will fetch a good price. What about Monster's corpse? Do they have any value? Aurelia sensed his frustration and tried to cheer him up. I'm sorry again. Only Rose would know since she's a receptionist for the guild in our small village. But I'm sure she has jobs posted on the board. Hopefully, you guys will get something good, she said with a smile. Light and Aurora made their way to the mercenary guild to meet with Rose. As they approached, Rose greeted them warmly and asked what had brought them there. We have something to show you, Light said as he pulled out a small bag. As he struggled to remove its contents, Aurora chimed in, it's a Black Ram corpse, and its core is inside. Rose was stunned. How on earth did that huge creature fit in that tiny bag? And more importantly, how did you two manage to defeat it? After some effort, the pair managed to lay the monster's body on the floor. We also have a few other items to show you, Aurora said as she pulled out a horn and a longsword. That's the horn from the first lambent horn monster we faced, Light explained. And this sword has traces of the boss's lightning magic inside. Rose inspected the items carefully as she calculated their value. Meanwhile, Light and Aurora exchanged amused glances as they recalled their struggle to remove the Black Ram's body from the small bag. After an hour of waiting, Rose returned with blood on her face from carving the Black Ram to extract its core. She explained, with its core still intact along with its body parts and fur, it will fetch 15 silver, and that includes the lambent horn. As for the stone longsword, it doesn't have any value, but you guys can use it as a weapon. Though, I must warn you that its durability isn't that great. Rose explained to Light and Aurora, first, you need to register to start any quest. We will evaluate your levels and the type of magic you possess. Based on that, you will receive a card with a rank on it. You can take jobs above your rank to advance to the next level within the guild, but it's strongly recommended that you're aware of the potential danger. If you choose to take the easier route, you can do at least 5 quests that are within your rank and advance to the next tier. However, there is an additional requirement before advancing. Whichever route you choose, be mindful that it will be dangerous. Light and Aurora listened attentively, nodding in understanding. Got it, Light said. We're ready to take on more challenging quests and advance through the ranks. Excellent, Rose replied. Let's get you registered first. Follow me, please. As they followed Rose, Light and Aurora couldn't help but feel excited about their future as mercenaries. They knew the dangers that lay ahead, but they were determined to face them head-on and climb the ranks within the mercenary guild. As they walked through the guild halls, they were separated into different rooms to evaluate their magical abilities. Aurora found herself in a room with a large mirror on the opposite wall. Okay, all you have to do is touch the glass, explained Rose. Depending on the color and any cracks that appear, we'll be able to determine your current level of magical power. Give a shout when you're done. The color of the glass will also indicate the type of magic you possess. Sometimes, there may be multiple colors, which is rare, but it will show your true potential. I see, said Aurora, nodding in understanding. Thank you for explaining that to me. Rose, before you go, I have a question, asked Aurora with a hint of worry in her voice. What happens if the mirror shatters? Rose looked at Aurora with concern. Well, The mirror can only handle the magical power of normal individuals. If it shatters, we have backup equipment. We'll bring in an orb that will give us more information about your magical abilities. We've had people in the past accidentally break the mirror, so it's not uncommon. Aurora nodded, feeling relieved. Thank you for answering my question, Rose. I'll be sure to be careful. Aurora approached the mirror and placed her hand on the cold glass. She closed her eyes, trying to focus her magical power, but before she could even begin, the mirror shattered into a million pieces. I barely even focused on anything, Aurora thought to herself. I guess I'm not normal. But what about Light? I don't want him to change like he did in the dungeon. I can't let him remember his former self. Aurora called for Rose, who quickly arrived to assess the situation. This is quite a mess you've made, Aurora, Rose said with an intrigued look on her face. But at least the mirrors are cheap, and it helps to separate the wheat from the chaff. Aurora felt guilty for breaking the mirror but was relieved that it wasn't a big deal. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off with Light, and she knew she needed to keep a close eye on him. Let me go retrieve the magic insight sphere, Rose said. Meanwhile, in another room, Light was being evaluated by another guild member. Guild member, hello there, I will be evaluating your magical power. Please touch this mirror and focus your magic onto it. Light, alright, is there anything else I need to do or is touching the mirror enough? The guild member underestimated Light and thought him to be a weak fool who wouldn't even leave a scratch on the mirror. However, he decided to proceed with the evaluation anyway. Light looked at the mirror with a thoughtful expression before poking it, causing it to shatter into pieces. The guild member was in disbelief and stammered, what the hell. I'll be right back with the magic insight sphere. Light, Aurora's going to kill me if she finds out I broke this mirror. Maybe I can lie and say I fell on it. Rose and the guild member found themselves in the same room, both there to obtain the same item. As they looked at each other, the guild member couldn't help but express his amazement. Rose. Where did you find this guy? He poked the mirror and it shattered. He seems like a monster to me, he said in disbelief. Rose chided him for his rudeness. Dante, don't be so rude. Besides, I knew these two were different. I just didn't expect them to be that different. But let's not forget, they cleared the Lambenhorn dungeon and defeated the boss. Dante was taken aback. Why didn't you tell me before? You had me thinking he was just some jackass coming into the mercenary guild. No wonder he broke the mirror so easily, he said, still in disbelief. Rose, okay Aurora, all you have to do is the same as before with the mirror. This won't shatter, I promise, she said warmly. Aurora nodded. Focus everything you have on the sphere, Rose added. As Aurora slowly focused, her mind tried to drift somewhere else. But she pinned her focus on a point as if Light's life was in danger. With a surge of energy, the orb turned completely white with specks of blue in the middle. Wow Aurora, this is very rare. First, the white indicates that you know light magic, and the specks of blue mean that you can also use water magic. While water magic is common, light magic is very rare, she said in amazement. Aurora replied, well, I already knew I can use light magic. I've used it plenty of times, but water magic is a first. Maybe I will learn it one day. With enough training and experience, I'm sure you'll learn it in no time, Rose reassured her. Now, all you have to do is wait in the hall for Light, and I will hand you both your rank cards, she added. Aurora couldn't wait for Light and became too curious. She peeked behind the door to see how he was getting evaluated. Dante said to Light, you'll have a hard time breaking this. Now, do the same thing you did before, but focus really hard. I wonder what will happen now. Light, nervous, began to touch the sphere. At first, it glowed red, indicating fire magic, but then, as he focused more, it began to turn purple for dark magic. Dante was already stunned that it changed two colors, but he was curious about what would happen next. As Aurora looked through the crack of the door, she saw Light's demeanor slowly change. He started to remember his alter ego taking over, how he felt when fighting the dungeon boss, and how thrilling it was to slice its skin. The memories consumed him, and he could feel his mind slipping away. His eyes turned pitch black, and the orb reflected his dark and twisted thoughts. It was as if he had fallen into the abyss, lost forever in the darkness. Dante was left speechless, his body trembling at the sight of the sphere turning black and Light's eyes following suit. I've never seen this change to this color before, he managed to stutter out. I will have to consult with Ross and see if we can find out what black means in our archives. Aurora, sensing the gravity of the situation, quickly sat down in the chair. She thought to herself, oh no. It's starting. I don't know if I'm strong enough to hold Light back, but I have to protect him from himself. Dante panted as he ran towards Rose, his heart racing with fear. Rose. We have a big problem, he said urgently. I don't know how to describe it, but Light is terrifying. I've never seen anything like it. Rose looked at him skeptically, her playful tone not matching the gravity of the situation. What are you talking about? I've never seen you like this. Is that really fear? She teased. Dante shook his head, his eyes wide with terror. I'm serious. While I was watching him, his color changed from red to purple. Dark magic is already rare, but then it turned completely black, with Light's eyes changing to black as well. I don't know what to do. If what you say is true, then I wouldn't have a clue what it means. We can check the archives, but if we can't find anything, our next step will be talking to the guild master, Rose said in a serious tone. Dante nodded in agreement, feeling slightly reassured by Rose's level-headedness. Together, they began searching the archives for any information on dark magic turning completely black. Here it is, Rose exclaimed after some time, flipping through the pages from red, brown, blue, and green for elemental magic, to dark blue, purple, white, dark green, and silver for other types of magic. Despite her thorough search, she couldn't find any reference to dark magic turning completely black. Dandy's anxiety began to rise again as he realized the seriousness of the situation. What do we do now? He asked, his voice shaking slightly. As I said before, we can go talk to the guild master. She should know something. Just calm down, okay? Rose said, trying to reassure Dante as she patted his shoulder. They made their way to the guild master's office, and as they opened the door, they were greeted with a dismissive and annoyed tone. What is it? Why does Dante look like he's about to shit himself, and why are you guys bothering me right now? Can't you see I'm busy? The guild master barked. I'm really sorry to bother you, but we kind of have a situation. You see. Rose nervously trailed off, pushing Dante forward to explain. Okay, well, I was evaluating someone today, and Dante began to explain, but he was immediately interrupted by the impatient guild master. For God's sakes, get to the point. What happened? She demanded. Dandy's fear of both the guild master and the mysterious person he had evaluated today was palpable as he tried to explain the situation. It will be best if I just show you, Dante said, sweating profusely. The three of them hurried past Aurora, who asked with concern, Is Light in trouble? No, Rose reassured her with a smile. We just need to see what's happening since Dante saw something that shook him. I'm sorry it's taking so long. We'll be out soon, I promise. Okay, let's get this over with, Ravenna Darkwater said as she approached them. She was a fierce-looking woman with an eye patch over her right eye. Her remaining eye glinted yellow in the dim light, and her short black hair was slicked back. A long sword was strapped to her back. My nickname is Stormblade, and you'd be wise not to test my patience. I don't know why Dante is in this idiotic state, but we'll get to the bottom of this right now. She barked, her frustration evident. Light looks at her. I don't know what you're talking about, but okay? He says in confusion. He gazed at Ravenna trying to see her level. Name, Ravenna Stormblade Blackwater, level, ? Does this mean she's too high of a level to see? Light thought. Light placed his hand on the sphere once more, and it glowed red before turning purple. He continued to channel his past memories of the dungeon, and the sphere turned completely black, just like his eyes. Ravina's unsettling voice echoed through the room as she gazed at Light with a mix of fear and confusion. What? Just what are you? She asked, her mind racing with memories of a time long ago. She spoke of an era when their ancestors had fallen, and the land was overrun by evil monsters and entities. The future generations had to fend for themselves, outnumbered and outmatched by the endless waves of darkness that threatened to engulf them all. Ravina's voice trailed off as she recounted a time when humans and monsters had formed a ceasefire, each taking a portion of the land that was inhabitable. But this uneasy peace was shattered when one of Yumi's children went on a rampage, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. Despite their best efforts, they were unable to stop him until Yumi, 3 of her children, and the neighboring kings banded together to end his tyranny. Ravina paused, lost in thought as the memories flooded back. She spoke of the day when she had lost an eye and Yumi had lost a beloved son. The name of the rampaging child hung on the tip of her tongue, but as she tried to say it, Light heard a loud pounding and scraping sound from inside his head, drowning out her words. For a moment, the room fell silent as Ravina collected herself. I have never felt this kind of energy before, she said, turning her gaze back to Light. It reminds me of that time, when the world was on the brink of destruction, and we fought tooth and nail to survive. She looked at Light with a mix of fear and awe. There is something different about you, something that sets you apart from the rest. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I know that you are not like any other being I have encountered before. Ravina looked at Light with a kind smile on her face. You don't have to tell us where you're from, she said, but as long as you're a mercenary, you will be a part of our family. And as a family, I will personally keep your secrets safe. She turned to Dante and Rose, who were standing nearby. Right, guys? She asked, her eyes shining with affection. Dante, still feeling a little jealous of Light, pouted and muttered under his breath. But Rose just laughed and teased him, reminding him of how scared he had been just moments before. Ravina's warm words and kind smile had a way of making Light feel welcome and accepted, as if he had finally found a place where he truly belonged. It was a feeling he had longed for his entire life, and he knew that he would do anything to protect this newfound family of his. Ravina's words left him speechless, and he didn't know what to say except to cry. As they all left the room, they realized they still had to wait for their cards to be made. We've got everything we need, Rose said. It'll only take a few days to finish your cards, but I'm sure you'll find a way to kill time. She flashed a friendly smile. As they exited the building, Aurora piped up. Hey, guys, I'm kinda pooped. Can we go on back to our camp? Notification, accept Aurora's offer, reward, nothing, penalty, Aurora will complain, then proceed to give you a knot on your head. What kind of quest is this? Out of all the times the system could have shown it in the Mercenary Guild, it had to be now, Light muttered in frustration. Light let out a deep sigh. Sure, let's just get back to our camp on the outskirts of Scavenger Village. As they walked, the night sky began to light up, revealing the beauty of the unknown. I wonder what's out there, Light said, gazing up at the stars. Aurora smiled and replied, the night sky is like a canvas painted with the light of 1,000,000 stars, each one a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always a glimmer of hope. The stars guide us through the night, showing us the way to our destiny. Light couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder and peace wash over her, as she looked up at the twinkling stars. It's amazing to think that there's so much out there, beyond what we can see. Yes, Aurora agreed. And it's up to us to discover it, to seek out new adventures, and to make the most of every moment we have. I am always here to protect you, Light. No matter what happens, you can count on me, she said warmly. Light, feeling flustered and blushing, asked, what do you mean? She replied, I mean that even if our fates or destinies are different, you will always be my cherished friend. Nothing can change that, and I will always be here for you. She smiled through tears in her eyes as she spoke. With a jokingly heartache, Light thought to himself, well, I definitely just got friendzoned. Concerned, He asked Aurora, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" Aurora thought about the events in the dungeon and guild, debating whether to tell Light the truth. It was eating her up inside, but she put on a smile and wiped away her tears. "I'm fine, don't worry," she said with a touch of humor. "As long as I'm with you, nothing will change that." They lay on the cozy grass, both closing their eyes, unsure of what tomorrow morning would bring. But for now, they were content in each other's company, and that was all that mattered. Light's mind drifted off into a dream, one of complete darkness, reminiscent of the time he had awoken from his capsule. But this time, the dream was different. The floor was filled with water. "Where am I?" he thought, feeling disoriented. He could hear faint footsteps slowly approaching him. "You're dreaming," his distorted self said slowly, appearing in front of him. Light approached with caution. "What do you want?" he asked. Surprisingly, his distorted self wore a sad expression. "We both know that the people you care about won't be there for you. Their promises are nothing but broken." Light was taken aback by the concern and worry in his distorted self's voice. It was unusual for him to see his former self show any kind of concern for his well-being. Nonetheless, he remained skeptical. "What makes you say that?" he asked. His distorted self let out a sigh. "Experience, Light. I've been through it all before. But you don't have to face it alone. I'm here to guide you, to help you." "I don't have to listen to this crap," Light exclaimed, his frustration mounting at the words spoken by the distorted voice. "I am the part of you that you have been suppressing, the part that you don't have the courage to show to the world," the voice continued in a calm yet eerie tone. "We have never experienced true happiness because it always comes with a price. And that price is grief, which in turn leads to anger. And those who stand in our way become our targets of wrath. Be warned. For even though we may not see eye to eye, I am still a part of you and I cannot betray you by stabbing you in the back." As the voice slowly faded away, its ominous message lingered in Light's mind. As the days passed, Light and Aurora relished their playful moments together. Little did they know, an unexpected figure had been keeping a close eye on them ever since their encounter with Marcellus. Lost in their own world, Aurora suddenly snapped out of it and exclaimed, "Light, let's head back to the guild. Our cards should be ready by now." Light nodded in agreement, and they made their way to the guild. As they arrived, Rose, the guild's receptionist, greeted them with enthusiasm. "Just the people I've been waiting for," she exclaimed, handing over their cards. "Take a look at these." Excitement pulsed through their veins as they gazed upon their cards, displaying their rank and their respective levels and MP. "This is amazing!" Aurora exclaimed, beaming with joy. Light wasn't particularly surprised by the information on the card, as his system had already informed him of the details. Aurora, on the other hand, was over the moon with excitement. "What's your level, Light?" "I'm at level 11. She exclaimed, eager to compare notes. Light nodded, acknowledging her strength. "You're stronger than me. I'm only at level 10, he admitted. Aurora let out a playful cackle. "Looks like I'll be the one protecting you then." Rolling his eyes, Light turned to Rose. "Do you have any jobs for us?" he asked, eager to embark on their next adventure. Rose smiled. "As a matter of fact, I do. There's been a recent surge in monster activity outside of town. The guild needs you to investigate and eliminate the threat." Rose looked intently at the duo and said, "We need you to defeat 10 goblins. They've been slowly growing in numbers close to the village, so it's best to deal with them now while their numbers are small." Aurora couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement at the prospect of taking on multiple jobs. "Rose, can we take on more than one job?" she asked eagerly. Rose smiled. "Yes, you can take on 2 jobs at a time. However, as new members, it's best to not overwhelm yourselves. Your job assignments will increase as your rank goes up." "I see," said Light, nodding in agreement. "And how much is the reward for the goblin elimination task?" "The reward for that job is 5 copper pieces," answered Rose. "And I almost forgot, here's another job for you. You'll need to kill 6 dire wolves." They are a little more challenging, but I'm sure it won't be an issue for you guys. The reward for this one is 15 copper pieces, including the core. Aurori's eyes gleamed with excitement at the prospect of taking on the tougher task. We'll take them both, she declared, grinning from ear to ear. Light nodded in agreement, ready to take on the challenge. As Light and Aurora made their way to Aurelia's garden shop, they discussed their next plan of action. Light suggested they stop by to stock up on supplies, and Aurora agreed. When they arrived, Aurelia greeted them with a warm smile. Aurora proudly showed off their new mercenary card, and Aurelia congratulated them. To celebrate your new achievements, how about I cook up my famous mushroom soup? Aurelia offered, a hint of mischief in her voice. It's so good, it'll leave you in shock. Aurora's face lit up with excitement. That sounds amazing, she exclaimed. Light couldn't help but smile at Aurora's enthusiasm. He was happy to enjoy the moment and put his worries aside. As they waited for the soup to be prepared, Aurelia chatted with them about their recent adventures. Light and Aurora were caught up in the conversation, unaware of the sly glint in Aurelia's eye. When the soup was ready, Aurelia served them each a steaming bowl. Light took a cautious sip, and to his surprise, it was delicious. Aurora was practically bouncing in her seat with joy. As they finished their meal, Light couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He replayed Aurelia's words in his head. It'll leave you in shock. What did she mean by that? But before he could voice his concerns, Aurelia bid them farewell with a sly smile. As they stepped outside, Light turned to Aurora. Did you notice anything strange about Aurelia? He asked. Aurora looked puzzled. No, not really. Why do you ask? Something just didn't feel right, Light replied, his mind still mulling over Aurelia's words. But maybe I'm just being paranoid. Let's keep moving. As Aurora and Light dig in, this is so yummy, she said as Light nodded. Then he noticed something, notification sun system increased. Ugh, this system is shit, he said as Light continued to eat the soup. As Light and Aurora weaved their way through the bustling crowd after visiting Aurelia, a niggling sensation begins to gnaw on Light's senses. He can't shake the feeling of eyes upon them, watching their every move. He turns sharply on his heel, scanning the sea of faces for any sign of danger. But there is nothing. What's wrong, Light? Aurora's voice rings out, laced with concern. It's probably nothing, Light replies, his tone hushed as he continues to scan the crowd. Just a feeling. But we should be careful, nonetheless. Aurora's playful demeanor shifts as she picks up on Light's unease. Of course, she says, her smile faltering slightly. But we won't let anything stand in the way of our adventures, right? Light nods, his eyes still darting around the throng of people. Right, he says, determination firm in his voice. Let's go. Marcellus sat in his dimly lit room, a scowl on his face as he wrote the letter to Jax. He had received word that a group of travelers were passing through Scavenger's Rest, carrying a bag that held something of great value. Marcellus knew that he had to have whatever was inside that bag, no matter the cost. Jax, he began, I have received intelligence that a group of travelers are carrying a bag with something of great value. I expect you to intercept them and bring me the bag. You know what will happen if you fail me, and I do not tolerate failure. Marcellus was not a man to be trifled with, and he made sure that his tone conveyed his authority. He continued, I am the chief of Scavenger's Rest, and my word is law. You will do as I say, or you will suffer the consequences. I have plans for whatever is in that bag, plans that will benefit me and the Iron Wolves greatly. He paused for a moment, his eyes glinting with malice. If anyone tries to stop you, eliminate them. I do not want any witnesses left behind. And if you fail to retrieve the bag, I will personally make sure that you suffer for your incompetence. Do not disappoint me, Jax. Marcellus leaned back in his chair, a cruel smile spreading across his face. He knew that whatever was in that bag was worth the risk, and he was not about to let anyone stand in his way. He was the chief of Scavenger's Rest, and he would do whatever it took to get what he wanted. Jax made his way back to the Iron Wolf hideout, the letter from Marcellus clutched tightly in his hand. He couldn't help but smile at the thought of the task ahead. He loved to kill and to toy with his victims, and the thought of the power that he held over them made him feel alive. As he entered his room, Jax's eyes fell on the axe that hung on the wall, its blade still stained with the dried-up blood of his previous victims. He took pleasure in the memories of the screams and pleas for mercy that had filled his ears as he had swung the axe with deadly precision. Jax read the letter from Marcellus again, his mind already planning the best way to eliminate anyone who stood in his way. He knew that he would need help, and he called upon 3 other bandits to accompany him on the mission. A few weeks later, the 4 of them made their way to Scavenger's Rest, their eyes scanning the crowd for any sign of light and aura, the 2 travelers who were rumored to be carrying a bag of great value. Jax didn't know their names, but he knew that he would recognize them when he saw them. As they made their way through the village, Jax's eyes fell on a couple who fit the description that he had been given. His heart raced with excitement as he approached them, his axe at the ready. "Jax, so, have you noticed the aurora tonight? It's quite magnificent." Bandit 1, "What do we care about the lights in the sky? We have a job to do." Jax, "I just find it fascinating how something so beautiful can happen while we're planning something so dark." Bandit 2, "Enough with the poetic crap. Let's focus on the job at hand." Jax, "Oh, I'm focused. In fact, I can feel the power coming from that bag Light is holding. It's a dark aura, full of magic." Bandit 3, "What are you talking about? There's no magic in that bag. You're just trying to psych yourself up." Jax, "No, I'm serious. I can feel it. And I'm excited to test our abilities and see the life drain from their eyes." Bandit 1, "You're sick, Jax. But I have to admit, I'm getting excited too. We've been planning this for weeks. It's time to take what's ours and show these fools who's boss." As they walked through the alleyways, Jax kept his eyes on the bag, wondering what kind of power it could hold. He knew that if he could get his hands on it, he could become unstoppable. Jax couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction as he gazed down at the bag. He knew that with its power, he would become the greatest bandit in all the land. "Jax, that's the spirit. And with the power in that bag, we'll be unstoppable." Bandit 2, "Let's just wait for the perfect moment. We don't want to mess this up." Jax, agreed. "We need to make sure we take them by surprise and strike when they least expect it." Bandit 3, "And when we're done, we'll be the richest bandits in the land." Jax, "And the most powerful. With this bag, we'll have everything we need to rule over all." The conversation continues as they plan their attack, each filled with excitement and anticipation for what's to come. As Light and Aurora walked back to their camp outside the Scavenger Rest village, they were ambushed by a group of goblins. Though they defeated them, their victory was short-lived, as they suddenly fell ill. Light dropped to his knees, and Aurora lay on the grass, gasping for air. "What's happening?" Aurora asked weakly. Jax and his bandits appeared from the shadows, laughing at their misfortune. "Finally, the poison is working its magic," Jax said, taunting them. Light and Aurora were shocked. "Poisoned?" Light asked, struggling to speak. Jax sneered at them. "You should have been more careful about who you trust. Your friend, Aurelia, made you soup and added poison without your knowledge." Light couldn't help but feel a sinking sense of guilt gnawing at him. He knew he should have trusted his instincts when they warned him about the encrypted message his system had sent. He replayed the message back in his mind, the warning clear as day, cautioning him about the poison that now coursed through his veins. As he sat there, lost in his thoughts, he couldn't shake the feeling that he alone was to blame for his current predicament. His mind raced with regrets and what-ifs, each one more torturous than the last. Why hadn't he listened to that nagging voice in the back of his head? Why had he ignored the warning signs? Now, as he sat there, his body racked with pain, he couldn't help but feel the weight of his mistake bearing down on him. It was his fault, and he knew it. He was left with nothing but his guilt and the knowledge that he had let himself down. How could she? Aurora asked, her voice trembling. Simple, Jax replied. She's not truly your friend. And how do you think we knew where you were going? Aurelia told us everything. Light and Aurora felt betrayed. They had thought they could rely on their friend, but instead, she had turned on them. The poison coursed through their veins, and they knew they were in deep trouble. Jax's sneer turned into a wicked grin as he explained that they had been planning to take their lives for weeks, all while waiting for the right moment to strike. He eyed the bag they were carrying, feeling the treasure inside emitting a powerful energy that he could almost taste. You see, you two were just pawns in our game, Jax continued. And now that we have what we want, we don't need you anymore. The other bandits cackled, trying to scare Light and Aurora with words. Jax licked his axe blade, which was stained with dried up blood. The sight was both poetic and horrific. Aurora managed to pull herself together, knowing that she hadn't eaten as much of the soup as Light did. She tried to heal Light with her magic ability, which she called Luminous Touch, but she was shot with an arrow in her arm by one of the bandits. Gotcha, bullseye! The bandit exclaimed triumphantly. Blood dripped down Aurora's arm, but she managed to smile and Light through her tears. It's okay, she said. I'll protect us. Everything will be okay. As the insidious poison coursed through his veins, Light's mind was engulfed by a maelstrom of despair and self-loathing. His vision became hazy, and his thoughts morphed into a cacophony of taunts and jabs, relentlessly prodding at his deepest insecurities and amplifying his every perceived weakness. In his mind's eye, he saw himself as a pitiful, spineless creature, utterly powerless to protect his dear friend Aurora. The poison was slowly killing him, and with each passing moment, Light felt himself being inexorably dragged into the abyss of darkness. You can't escape the darkness, his consciousness whispered, its voice dripping with icy malevolence. As Aurora fought off the bandits with all her might, she remained unaware of the internal struggle that was raging within Light. Meanwhile, Jax sat down at a safe distance, a twisted smirk on his lips, watching as his two subordinates attempted to take down the valiant warrior. Her senses sharpened by the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She knew that she needed to turn the tide of the battle if she was to survive. It was then that she remembered her magic ability, the luminous blade. With a swift motion, she channeled her light magic into her sword, causing it to glow with an otherworldly radiance. The power of her attacks increased, and she began to push back against the bandits with renewed vigor. The bandits were taken aback by Aurora's sudden surge in power, but they quickly regained their composure and resumed their coordinated attacks. Bandit 1 continued to press his attacks up close, while Bandit 2 increased his rate of fire, raining arrows down on Aurora from a safe distance. Despite their efforts, Aurora was holding her own, her luminous blade cutting through the air with deadly grace. As Jax watched from a distance, he couldn't help but feel a sense of bone-chilling anger towards Aurora. He had sent 2 of his best men to take care of her, and yet she was proving to be more of a challenge than he had anticipated. However, his anger was tempered by a twisted sense of admiration for her strength and tenacity. He watched as her luminous blade cut through the air, marveling at the power she possessed. But Jax knew that it was time to put an end to this. With a cold smile spreading across his face, he stepped out from his hiding place and made his way towards the battlefield. Enough, he said in a voice that was cold as ice. It's time for me to deal with you personally, Aurora. Jax, however, seemed all too eager for the bandit's offer. No, my strength alone should be fine, he replied, his eyes fixed on his axes. Stand here and watch how I play with my victims. He licked the blade of one of his axes with a sickening grin, sending shivers down Aurora's spine. Before she could even react, Jax had launched himself at her, his axes flashing in the dim light. Aurora barely managed to raise her own weapon in time to block his attack, but she knew she was no match for him. Jax was too strong, too fast, and too skilled. What's wrong? Jax taunted, his voice twisted with glee. I thought you'd be stronger. He circled around Aurora, his axes glinting menacingly in the dim light. "Come on, fight back," he taunted. "I want to see you suffer." Aurora's heart pounded in her chest as she struggled to keep up with Jax's lightning-fast movements. Despite his massive size, he moved with the grace and speed of a panther, his axes flashing in the dim light. How is he moving so fast if his body is this bulky? She thought, her mind racing. But her thoughts were interrupted by a cry from Light, who lay on the ground, defeated. "Light! Light!" she called out, desperate to snap him out of it. Jax, annoyed by her distraction, turned his attention back to Aurora. "Who told you to look away?" he growled, his eyes narrowing. Without warning, he unleashed a devastating punch to her stomach, sending her flying through the air and crashing into a nearby tree. Aurora gasped for breath as pain racked her body. She struggled to get back on her feet, but her limbs felt heavy and unresponsive. Each sound of Jax's axes colliding with her weapon sent shock waves of agony through her body, making her feel weaker and more helpless with each passing moment. Jax seemed to revel in her terror, his grin growing wider with each blow. "You're nothing but a helpless little girl," he sneered, his voice twisted with malice. "You can't even defend yourself. How pathetic." Aurora gritted her teeth, refusing to give up. She knew she had to keep fighting, no matter what. But as Jax continued his relentless assault, she began to feel a sense of despair creeping over her. Was this the end? Was she really going to die here, alone and helpless, at the hands of this monster? Even as she trembled with terror, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered a message of hope and determination. She couldn't give up. She wouldn't give up. Not yet. Aurora felt her heart pounding in her chest as she channeled every last drop of magical energy she had left. Her weapon began to glow with an ethereal light as she wrapped it in a swirling vortex of power. The area around her brightened, and a gust of wind erupted from the force of her magic. "I will not fall," she cried out, her voice ringing with determination. "I promise to protect the ones I care about, especially from monsters like you." With a fierce swing of her weapon, she sent the spiraling spear hurtling towards Jax and his men. Jax's men scrambled to get out of the way, but Jax himself stood his ground, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "Now this is what I'm talking about!" he exclaimed. With a swift motion, he activated his stone catalyst, B, a powerful defensive skill that made him nearly untouchable. Aurora watched in horror as the blast engulfed the area, but to her surprise, Jax emerged unscathed. "That was close," she panted, falling to her knees. She waited, breathless, to see if it was over. Aurora's blast hit Jax's impenetrable stone catalyst skill, causing cracks to appear on its surface. Jax, however, didn't seem fazed by the attack. He smirked and taunted, "Hit me harder." The sound of his words echoed through the clearing, making Aurora's skin have goosebumps. Jax let out a thunderous stomp, sending a surge of earth magic hurtling towards Aurora. The force of the blast knocked her off her feet and sent her tumbling through the air, landing hard next to Light. As Aurora's lifeless body lay before him, Light felt a chill run down his spine, as if death itself had reached out and touched him. Aurora's body was ice cold, her soul having departed this mortal coil. As tears streamed down her face, she struggled to speak her final words to Light. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I've been lying to you all along." Light's mind was racing with questions and confusion, but his fear was palpable as he watched Aurora struggle to explain herself. Suddenly, an arrow whizzed through the air and buried itself in her skull, cutting short her explanation. "Sorry to cut it short," the bandit sneered, "but I couldn't take her lying like that. Someone had to put her out of her misery." Jax and the other bandit cackled with delight, relishing in the gruesome spectacle before them. Light felt a cold hand wrap around his heart, as the realization of what was happening began to sink. He could only watch helplessly as Jax and his band of marauders ransacked their campsite, looking for something of value amidst their belongings. Jax's eyes widened as he laid his hands on the mysterious mask that had fallen out of Aurora's bag. "Finally," he exclaimed, "this power is mine. With this, I alone will take over, starting with this wretched village." As Jax began to unwrap the cloth that covered the mask, his band of cutthroats stood guard, watching as their leader savored the power he was about to obtain. The air was thick with tension, and Light could feel his heart pounding in his chest as he watched the scene unfold before him. As Light looked upon Aurora's lifeless body, he was struck dumb with grief and horror. He couldn't save her, couldn't protect her from the cruelty of the world. He was weak, powerless, and utterly alone. Lost of words. I couldn't save her, I couldn't do anything. Why? Why does this keep happening? You're weak, interrupted by his distorted self. A voice spoke to him, a voice that seemed to come from the depths of his own soul. It was a dark, twisted voice, full of menace and corruption. Power is the driving force behind the workings of this world, for it is the ultimate enabler that allows the weak to achieve their goals and fulfill their desires. Without power, one is left to the mercy of fate, unable to shape their own destiny or forge their own path. It is through the pursuit of power that we can transcend our limitations and reach the heights of greatness that we aspire to, continued with a distorted tone. Embrace the abyss, forsake your feeble humanity, and allow your venomous loathing to consume every fiber of your being until naught but a twisted, fiendish smirk remains as a testament to your depravity. As the distorted tone grew, so did the mask-dense aura, slowly glowing up in Jax's hand. In an instant the mask flew onto Light's face, causing his head to jerk back. With the devil's grin help, gained a piece of his memory. What are you doing to me? No. No, please don't. Light's screams echoed through the sterile lab as memories were extracted from his mind like a madman tearing apart a helpless victim. This is for the greater good of humanity, a sinister voice spoke through the intercom, devoid of any empathy for the suffering being subjected to their cruel experiments. Days turned into weeks, and Light felt himself descending into a nightmarish realm of perpetual agony. Each day brought with it fresh horrors as his mind was pried open and his memories dissected with brutal efficiency, leaving him a hollow shell of his former self. We need a hero, one who is willing to make the ultimate sacrifice to save this wretched world, the voice on the intercom hissed with a deranged glee. But Light's response was filled with a bone-chilling horror and a terrifying malice that made the very foundations of humanity shudder in fear. If this is what it takes to serve humanity, then I will become the instrument of their destruction. I will embody the very essence of evil, and I will unleash a scourge upon the world that will make even the darkest of nightmares pale in comparison. I will break the very fabric of humanity, and from its ruins, I will create a new world order. Chaos will reign supreme, and I will be its architect, shaping the world in my own twisted image. The cries of the innocent will be but music to my ears, and the rivers of blood will flow like wine. Let the world bear witness to my wrath, for I am Light, and I am the end of all humanity. The wind howled with a ferocity that matched the rage, raging within Light's soul. Suddenly, a surge of dark magical energy enveloped him in a swirling vortex, shooting towards the heavens and casting an ominous shadow over the entire area. As Light opened his eyes, they glowed with a predatory red light, and his very presence was suffused with a dark and terrifying power. Jax and his bandits could only stare in horror as the energy slowly dissipated, revealing Light's new form, which is masking, covering his jawline to half of his mouth. The devil's grin imbued him with a dense, magical aura that pulsed with malevolence. As he donned the mask, Light felt a rush of anger and cruelty surge through him, fueling his power and intensifying the twisted grin on his face. It was a terrifying sight to behold, as the mask seemed to warp his very being, turning him into a vessel of pure malevolence. With each passing moment, Light's rage grew, fueled by the power coursing through his veins. His eyes glinted with a cruel light as he surveyed the victims before him, imagining in vivid detail the horrors he would inflict upon them. The mask seemed to amplify his darkest impulses, making him feel invincible and unstoppable. As he raised his hand, crackling with dark energy, the victims trembled in fear, knowing that they were about to face a fate worse than death. Light's grin widened, almost splitting his face in two, as he reveled in the power coursing through him. In that moment, he was a force of pure malevolence, a harbinger of death and destruction. The devil's grin had transformed him into a monster, and he relished every moment of it. He was unstoppable, invincible, and utterly terrifying. And woe betide anyone who dared to stand in his way. I will personally enjoy playing with you. Stay perfectly still if you value your life. His grin widened, revealing a set of gleaming teeth that glinted in the dim light. The sheer malevolence in his eyes was enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. Light continued to approach the bandits at a leisurely pace, relishing in the fear that emanated from their trembling bodies. "Please, have mercy, you're a monster," begged the first bandit, his voice quivering with terror as he tried running away. The wind howled around them, as if the very elements were protesting against Light's heinous actions. With a sudden burst of energy, Light snatched a fallen leaf from the ground and poured his dark power into it. The leaf glowed with an otherworldly light, as if imbued with the very essence of evil. In a swift and deadly motion, he hurled the leaf with all his might at the first bandit. The leaf sliced through the air with an ear-piercing shriek, before embedding itself in the bandit's skull, cleaving it in half. Blood and brain matter gushed from the horrific wound, as the bandit's lifeless body crumpled to the ground. "I told you not to move," Light hissed, his voice dripping with malice as he loomed over the lifeless body. He hovered over the corpse, reveling in the power he held over life and death. Slowly, he turned his gaze towards the other two people, his eyes burning with a cold, calculating intensity. He relished in the fear that he could see etched on their faces. Light's grin widened as he spoke with a diabolical tone, "Now, let's play a game." His voice dripped with malice. They could feel the weight of his dark energy bearing down on them, and they knew that they were in for something sinister. Bandit 2 was drenched in sweat, his fear palpable as he growled, "I don't have to listen to this shit." He drew his bowstring and took aim at Light, ready to strike. Jax intervened, shouting, "Wait!" But before he could stop Bandit 2, the arrow was already hurtling towards Light's forehead, aimed to kill. As the arrow came dangerously close, something inexplicable happened. Light split the arrow in two with his dark magic, without even lifting a finger. The bandits could hardly believe their eyes. Bandit 2 stammered, "I." It split without him lifting a finger. "He's not a monster, but a demon." His gaze was fixed on Light, whose smile had turned sinister. "Now," Light spoke with a menacing voice, resonating with dark energy, "are we going to play my game, or do you want to show me what else you have up your sleeves?" The air was thick with an ominous aura, and the bandits knew they were in the presence of something truly terrifying. Jax declared, "I have something special for you," as he pounded the ground with his earthquake skill. At the same time, he hurled his axe, curving it to strike Light from the right. With lightning-fast reflexes, Light utilized his newfound abilities to halt both Jax's skill and weapon. Then, he pivoted to Jax's blind side, seizing the fighter's arm and flinging him back to his initial position. "Is that all you have?" Light asked nonchalantly, stifling a yawn. He was growing weary of Jax's fervent attacks. Jax retorted, "Oh, it's only just begun," as his comrades, Bandit 2 and 3, cheered him on. He activated his stone catalyst, and transformed the rubble into sharp shards, known as rock shard, "Behold, my ultimate defense with an offensive twist," he sneered, holding 1,000 shards at his disposal. With a menacing grin, Jax launched the shards towards Light, confident that there was no way his opponent could dodge them. However, Light proved him wrong. With his shadow evasion, he evaded the shards in a manner that an ordinary human could not see. Growing increasingly agitated, Light closed the distance between himself and Jax. With a single finger, he shattered Jax's ultimate defense. "I've had enough waiting," Light declared, his annoyance palpable. Jax realized with a sinking feeling that he was no match for Light's dominance. All his attempts to gain the upper hand were feeble in comparison to Light's abilities. He could only watch in awe as Light demonstrated his superiority once again. Jax's voice trembled as he spoke, "What is this game?" Light's grin widened, mirroring the expression on his mask. "It's a game of hide and seek," he replied, his tone dripping with malice. "You have until sunset to survive. If you win, I'll let you go. But if you lose..." He turned to the dead bandit and viciously stomped on his skull. "You'll end up like your friend here. I'll start counting now." He closed his eyes and turned away from Jax. 1, 2, 3. His voice was almost musical, but the evil undertone sent shivers down Jax's spine. Bandit 2's voice quavered as he spoke up. He didn't say when he's stopping. Bandit 3 had already fled the scene, desperate to find a hiding place or to put as much distance between himself and Light as possible. Jax turned to Bandit 2 and stammered, "Looks like that bastard ran away. Come on, let's hide together. We'll have a better chance of escaping." Fear and anguish were etched on his face, and his hands shook uncontrollably. The bandits were equally terrified, their hearts pounding in their chests. They knew that Light was not to be trifled with and that their lives were at stake. They scrambled to find a hiding spot, but they couldn't shake off the feeling that Light was always one step ahead of them. The darkness enveloped Jax and Bandit 2 like a thick, suffocating blanket. They crouched in a narrow hole, barely wide enough for the both of them, dug by Jax's earth magic. Their breathing was shallow and labored, every sound amplified by the oppressive silence. Then, a voice, chilling and sinister, cut through the stillness. 28. 29. 30. "Time to slaughter," it taunted, laughing in a way that made their skin crawl. Bandit 2's hand flew to his head, tears streaming down his face. "What do you think he is, Jax? I've never felt anything more terrifying in my life," he whimpered. "We're screwed, aren't we? There's no way we can hide from that monster. He probably knows we're here." Jax cut him off, his voice a harsh whisper. "Quiet your fucking crying," he spat. "He doesn't know we're here, or he would have killed us by now. We just have to be silent and wait here." But even as he spoke, Jax couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled deep in his gut. The unknown terror lurking in the darkness was like a predator, stalking its prey with deadly intent. They were trapped, helpless, at the mercy of a monster they couldn't see. And with every passing moment, the fear and horror only grew. Bandit 3's heart pounded in his chest as he crouched behind a bush, desperately trying to catch his breath. "Shit shit shit," he cursed under his breath. "I should have stayed with the others, but my legs moved before thinking." As he rested, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every rustle of the leaves, every snap of a twig, made him jump with fear. He scanned his surroundings, but saw nothing. Then, suddenly, a voice spoke right behind him. "You chose an interesting place to hide, dumb but interesting," it said, with a sickening smile. Bandit 3's stomach churned with terror as he turned to face Light, the notorious killer who had been hunting them down one by one. He pleaded for his life, his voice shaking. "No. Don't. I have a family." But Light only laughed, the sound cold and cruel. "Your family won't miss you," he sneered. As Bandit 3 thought about his life, he realized how wrong he had been to join the gang. He should have stayed away from crime, should have been there more for his family. But it was too late now. He was face to face with a monster, and there was no escape. The fear and horror he felt were overwhelming, and he knew that his time had come. Bandit 3 was wrapped around fear so much that his heart stopped dying by a heart attack. "Oh, that's no fun," Light said in a cruel way. Before Light walked away, a notification popped up on his system. Notification: New Achievement Award, Terrorizing Triumph. Description: This achievement is earned by instilling paralyzing fear in an opponent to the point of causing physical harm. Player cruel and calculating tactics manipulated Bandit 3's fear to the point of inducing a fatal heart attack. His ruthless efficiency in exploiting his enemies' weaknesses is a testament to his unwavering determination to achieve his goals. Increases user killing intent to even greater heights. Notification: Scan complete. The subject's body is surrounded by a lingering soul. Revival requested. Confirmation needed for initiation. Light's expression turned serious as he replied, "Initiate revival." System: Understood. Please provide the command for revival. Light paused for a moment, carefully choosing his words. Finally, he commanded, "Transcend." System: Revival sequence initiated. Stand by for revival. As the revival sequence completed, the previously lifeless body began to stir. Suddenly, a skeletal figure emerged from within, causing Light's eyes to gleam with a sinister excitement. Without hesitation, Light swiftly dressed the skeleton in a dark hooded cloak, obscuring its face from view. His mind was already racing with plans for his next move, relishing in the thought of the power he now held over this revived being. The scene was eerie and foreboding, with the newly resurrected skeleton standing motionless before Light, as if awaiting his every command. The air was thick with a sense of impending danger, as Light reveled in the dark possibilities that this macabre creation now presented him with. Name: Skeleton Soldier. Species: Undead. Level: 1. The AI system's voice resonated in Light's mind. The Devil's Grin has bestowed upon you a gift. Light's eyes flickered to his information, where he saw the title Necromancer next to his name. He then glanced at his new skill, Raise the Dead, SSS, and turned his attention to the skeleton standing before him. I suppose this is why you've come, he mused, a sly grin spreading across his face. But don't worry, my dear soldier, he said, placing a club in the skeleton's hand. I promise you won't go to waste. With a flick of his wrist, he commanded the skeleton to mindlessly walk into the forest. As the bright light faded from the narrow hole, Jax and Bandit 2 emerged from their hiding spot. Jax surveyed the sky. It's sunset. We need to get out of here. He widened the hole, making it easier for them to climb out. Bandit 2 looked around warily. What about that monster lurking about? Are you sure he'll keep his word? Jax sighed. I don't know, but we can't stick around to find out. Let's make a run for it and get back to our hideout. We'll lay low for a while until we figure out our next move. He began to lead the way, with Bandit 2 following closely behind. As they ran, Jax and Bandit 2 noticed a faint figure in the distance. They cautiously moved closer, eventually finding a safe hiding spot. Bandit 2 peered out from behind Jax and squinted at the figure in the distance. Hey, wait a minute. Isn't that? Bandit 2 started to run towards the figure, thinking it was a fellow member of their group. Hey, how did you survive? He called out, hoping for a response. But as he turned the skeleton soldier around, he was met with a face that filled him with horror. What the? Before he could even finish his sentence, the skeleton soldiers swung their club with great force, striking Bandit 2's shoulder and breaking it. He crumpled to the ground, writhing in pain. Light heard the blood-curdling scream of Bandit 2 echoing through the forest, and he knew he had found his targets. Swiftly, he made his way to their location, perching atop a tree at a safe distance while he observed Jax and Bandit 2. The latter was still writhing in agony, his screams piercing the night. Jax turned to the skeleton soldier with a vicious grin. It looks weak, he said, raising his axe to strike. But before he could land a blow, Light intervened, grabbing hold of the blade and halting it in midair. Did you miss me? Light asked, his voice laced with an otherworldly power. As he held the blade, his magical aura resonated outwards, filling the air with an eerie glow that seemed to freeze Jax in his tracks. For a moment, there was silence in the forest as the three figures faced off against one another. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, Light wrenched the axe from Jax's grasp and sent him stumbling backwards. With a wicked grin on his face, Light turned to his skeleton soldier and issued a chilling command. Finish what you started, he said, his voice dripping with sadistic pleasure. Kill Bandit 2, but make it slow. I want to hear him scream. Without hesitation, the skeleton soldier obeyed. It struck Bandit 2 in the shoulder, then the right and left kneecaps, leaving him immobilized. Then, with a cold precision, it began to break the bandit's fingers one by one, starting with the right hand. Light watched with a sick satisfaction as Bandit 2's screams echoed through the forest. But his amusement was short-lived. Suddenly, Jax charged at him, fury in his eyes. Light dropped his scythe, ready to face Jax head-on. The bandit threw a barrage of punches, but Light didn't flinch. He let Jax's fists rain down on him, lost in thought about what he could have done differently to save Aura from her fate. As Jax continued to pummel him, Light's mind drifted to memories of her aura, her smile, her laughter, her warmth. He felt a pang of guilt in his chest, knowing that he had failed to protect her. And so, he let Jax's punches be his punishment, a penance for his own failures. The sound of Jax's fists striking his flesh echoed through the forest, but Light remained stoic, lost in his own thoughts. He knew that he deserved this, that he needed to pay for his mistakes. And so, he endured Jax's assault, waiting for the moment when he could finally make things right. As Light still drifting off, a faint voice emerged from his head. As Jax's fists continued to pummel him, Light was consumed by the voice of his distorted self, taunting him with guilt and despair. "What are you doing? Why aren't you fighting back?" The voice jeered. "You know that your weakness will only lead to the loss of those you care about. Are you going to let Aurora's death be in vain?" Suddenly, the voice changed, morphing into Aurora's gentle tones. "You promised that we would be friends forever," she said, her voice tinged with sadness. "Why did you let me die, Light? And now, you're not even fighting back. What's the point?" The two voices merged and overlapped, combining into one deep, haunting sound that echoed through Light's mind. It was both his own voice and Aurora's, filled with equal parts of guilt and despair. But in the midst of his agony, Light found the strength to respond. "I'm punishing myself," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I failed to protect Aurora, and now, I have to pay the price." His distorted self was silent for a moment, shocked by Light's words. But then it spoke again, its voice low and menacing. "Punishment is not the answer," it said. "You must learn from your mistakes, but you cannot let them consume you. Remember, Light, the darkness is always waiting. And when it comes for you, will you be ready?" Light's distorted self spoke to him, urging him to embrace the darkness within. As his confidence slowly returned, Light responded with a chilling grin. "I am the darkness," he said. "Those who seek me out must be ready for what they will find." His distorted self mirrored his smile and replied, "Let them fall into the abyss, awaiting our arrival." With those words, it vanished, leaving Light to face Jax alone. Jax threw a series of punches at Light, but he was able to block them with ease. "That's enough," Light growled. "Now it's my turn." With a swift motion, he punched Jax in the stomach, causing him to gasp for air. Then, he kicked him in the face, sending him flying across the room. But Light was not finished. He caught up with Jax as he struggled to get up. Light slid across his body, kicking and dancing on his ribs with a bone-chilling rhythm. Jax cried out in pain, but Light seemed to revel in his suffering. The fight continued, each blow more intense than the last. As Jax tried to fight back, Light seemed to grow stronger, more powerful with each passing moment. It was as if he was feeding on Jax's pain, nourishing himself on the suffering of others. Jax's screams pierced the silent night as he begged for mercy. "Please. Let me go," he pleaded, his voice trembling with fear. The sound of Banditu's agonized cries echoed in the distance, while the rustling of leaves signaled the approach of something far more sinister. Light towered over Jax, his face twisted with rage. "Where's Aurelia?" he snarled, his voice low and menacing. Jax's mind raced as he searched for a way out of this nightmare. "She lives on the other side of the village, in a wooden house you couldn't miss," he stuttered, tears streaming down his face. "Please, don't hurt her. She means everything to me." The darkness seemed to press in on Jax, suffocating him with its oppressive weight. He could feel the icy hand of death slowly drawing near, ready to claim him at any moment. As Light loomed closer, Jax wondered if he would ever see his beloved Aurelia again. The night was filled with terrors, and he feared that they would consume him whole. Light leaned in close to Jax, his eyes glittering with sadistic pleasure. "Don't worry about Aurelia," he sneered. "She's not my concern." He picked up his scythe with a wicked grin. "This, on the other hand." His voice trailed off as he began to slowly torture Jax, carving and slicing his skin piece by piece. Blood spattered the ground as Jax's screams filled the air. But Light was unfazed by his victim's agony. He stood there, motionless, as he continued to slice into Jax's lifeless body with his scythe. Each blow was deliberate and precise, as if he were savoring every moment of the torture. As he hacked away at the remnants of Jax's flesh, a sickening grin spread across Light's face. He was no longer the same person he had once been. The darkness had consumed him completely, and there was nothing left but a cruel, sadistic monster. And so he continued to hack and slice, relishing in the pain and suffering he inflicted upon his victim. There was nothing left in the world except his own twisted pleasure. As Light stood over Jax's lifeless body, his eyes blazing with determination, he spoke the command transcend with a fierce intensity. Suddenly, a burst of dark energy erupted from Jax's body, enveloping it completely. Light stood back, watching with a mix of apprehension and curiosity as the energy swirled and eddied around Jax's form. Moments later, the energy dissipated, revealing a figure that could only be described as a skeleton knight. The knight was wielding the same axe that Jax had wielded in life. Name, Death Knight, Species, Undead, Level, 1, Skill, Stone Shardy Earthquake, E. It seems that he lost his Stone Catalyst, B, on top of his skills ranking down. I'm guessing it's due to its level, maybe? Light pondered. As Light looked through his Rise of the Dead skill, he noticed a stark difference in the amount of magical power, or MP, that his Death Knight and his Skeleton Soldier consumed. The Death Knight took a massive 45 MP every time it was killed and revived, while the Skeleton Soldier only took 1 MP. Despite this, Light didn't pay it much mind, knowing that he could level up and increase his magical power to compensate for the Death Knight's higher cost. With a wave of his hand, Light commanded the Skeleton Soldier to stop and let the Death Knight take care of Bandit 2. The Death Knight stepped forward, its massive axe gleaming in the moonlight as it prepared to strike. Now let's go have a chat with Aurelia, Light said, his voice dripping with killing intent. As Light made his way towards Aurelia, he stopped at Aurora's lifeless body hoping to revive her. The system responded in a cold, mechanical voice, error. The user did not eliminate this person. Therefore, the user cannot revive her. Light's frustration grew as he punched a nearby tree, leaving a gaping hole. Damn it! He yelled, feeling powerless. He picked up Aurora's body and held it close, tears streaming down his face. Even though I can't have you by my side, he whispered, at least come with me one last time. Meanwhile, Aurelia was back at her home, preparing herself something to eat. Her thoughts were filled with malice as she contemplated Jax and the treasure they had obtained. She smiled wickedly, I hope that bastard Jax takes care of them. With their treasure, I can sell it for a fortune. It's too bad they had to die, though. I was starting to like them. Her words were manipulative and cold, lacking any remorse for the lives lost. Aurelia was startled by the unexpected knock at her door. She hesitated to open it, as visitors were rare occurrence, aside from Jax and her brother. However, when she heard Light's voice, she recognized it and her curiosity piqued. Please open up, it's Light. Please, Aurora isn't moving, he said, his voice shaking with emotion. Aurelia opened the door, but her suspicion lingered. How did you know where I lived? She asked, eyeing him warily. I asked around the village. They said that only you can help me, Light replied, still sobbing, as he carried Aurora's lifeless body into her home and placed her on the bed. Aurelia pretended not to know what had happened, but she already knew the answer. She couldn't resist the intrigue of the situation and asked, well, what happened? Her eyes narrowed as she tried to read Light's emotions, wondering what he wanted from her and what his true intentions were. We were attacked by bandits. I think they followed me, Light said, trying to hide the arrow lodged in Aurora's head with her hair. Aurelia looked out of her window and saw faint shadowy humanoid figures lurking in the distance. She needed to play along so Light wouldn't get suspicious. Quickly, she put up a vine wall all around her house to keep the intruders out. We should be safe for right now, she said, trying to sound reassuring. Oh, thank you, Aurelia, Light responded, wiping his tears away. Aurelia suggested, I was just about to eat something, Care to join me? As soon as Light turned his back to check on Aurora, Aurelia sprinkled a deadly poison made from mushrooms onto his food. This should be enough to paralyze him completely, she cracked, her devious plans unfolding. Aurelia placed the bowl on the table and extended an invitation to Light to join her. But he was too consumed with worry for Aurora. Can you please try to heal her? He pleaded. Aurelia rose from her seat and attempted to use Healing Bloom, but to no avail. She delivered the devastating news to Light, who let out a gut-wrenching cry before retreating to the living room. As Aurelia covered Aurora's body with a sheet, she turned to Light with a sympathetic smile. I'm truly sorry. I know how close you two were, she said, hoping to provide some semblance of comfort. But perhaps eating will make you feel a bit better. Maybe you're right, Light muttered, his appetite returning as he hungrily devoured the food. Aurelia watched him eat, her own hunger piqued by the sight and aroma of the delicious dish. She joined in, savoring each bite while keeping a watchful eye on Light. Aurelia's eyes widened as she took a closer look at Light's face. Light, what is that on the side of your face? It looks like a mask, but the way it's twisted into a smile is giving me the creeps, she said, her voice shaking with fear. Light's expression shifted to a sly grin as he replied, Oh, it's just something Aurora and I got from a dungeon before we were ambushed by bandits. A couple of minutes passed in silence, and Aurelia couldn't help but wonder why the poison hadn't taken effect yet. Before she could voice her concerns, a wave of dizziness washed over her, rendering her unable to move her body. Light wiped away his tears and revealed his true colors with a devilish smile. Just kidding, he said in a low and menacing voice. In a flash, he picked up Aurelia's stunned body and slammed her face against the wall, shattering her nose. Aurelia cried out in agony but couldn't muster a scream due to the poison coursing through her veins. Oh, no, don't cry. You haven't even gotten started, Light taunted in a chilling, terrifying way. The air was thick with fear and dread as Aurelia realized the true nature of the man. The room grew darker, and the silence was deafening as Light stood over her, his twisted smile sending shivers down her spine. Without warning, Light launched a brutal assault on Aurelia, raining down punches on her face and slamming her into the furniture until she was barely conscious. He then used his killing intent to give her a glimpse of the horrors he could inflict upon her in the coming moments. Aurelia quivered in fear, unable to control her bladder as she peed herself. Light kicked her squarely in the stomach, causing the urine to spurt out in a stream and pool on the floor. Aurelia tried to use vine wall to create some distance between them, but Light sliced through it with ease. You didn't ask if you could fight back, he taunted, before inflicting a gruesome punishment upon her. With a twisted grin, Light took Aurelia's hand as a tribute, wrenching it from her body with a sickening crunch. Aurelia screamed in agony, the sound echoing through the room as blood spurted from her amputated limb. She realized with horror that the man she once trusted had revealed himself to be a monster, and there was no escaping his wrath. As Aurora trembled in fear, Light waited patiently for her to calm down before interrogating her. With a cruel smirk, he asked, Why did you try to kill us? We trusted you. Grabbing her by the hair, he showed her Aurora's lifeless body. This is what you did, and now you're going to pay. Despite her fear, Aurora couldn't help but smile. I did it for the money, she admitted. I was ordered to. My brother wanted the mask you're wearing right now. Light's eyes widened with shock and anger. Who is your brother? He demanded, his grip on her hair tightening. Aurora winced in pain but managed to answer, Marcellus. The revelation left Light speechless for a moment. He had never suspected that the two were related, as they looked nothing alike. But his shock quickly turned to fury as he released Aurora's hair. You thought it was all over, didn't you? He hissed, turning his back to her. Well, we're not finished yet. Without warning, Light spun around and delivered a fierce blow to Aurora's head, knocking her out cold. As he looked down at her unconscious form, his voice dripped with vengeful satisfaction. You'll pay for what you did, Aurora. And so will your brother. As Aurelia lay unconscious on the ground, Light sneered triumphantly. He sauntered over to the rope she had used to hang her pot over the fire and grabbed it with a cruel smirk. Moments earlier, Light's two minions had busted through Aurelia's defenses, leaving broken holes in her once sturdy house. "You're a little late to the party," Light taunted them, relishing in his victory. He then lifted Aurelia's unconscious body upright and commanded his Death Knight to stand guard beside her. With a sense of purpose, Light strode to the other room, where he mourned over the body of Aurora, his fallen comrade. He couldn't afford to dwell on her death for long, however, as he quickly summoned his skeleton soldier to take her or his body somewhere safe. As he plotted his next move, Light couldn't help but smirk at the thought of his enemies cowering before him. Meanwhile, Rose sat nervously twirling her thumbs. "It's been a while since Aurora and Light came back," she said, her voice tinged with worry. "Should we go check on them?" Dante brushed off her concerns with a casual wave of his hand. With Light's monstrous magical power and Aurora's skills, they should be fine, he reassured her. "It's just goblins and dire wolves. They'll be back soon." But Rose couldn't shake off her unease. "I know, but it's been hours," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "Something could have gone wrong." Dante sighed, clearly irritated. "Quit your worrying," he chided her. "We have work to do. Let's finish this paperwork before the guild master has our asses." Despite his stern words, Rose couldn't shake off her anxiety. As she forced herself to focus on the task at hand, her mind kept wandering back to the image of Light and Aurora, facing off against unknown enemies in the dangerous wilderness. In the Scavenger Rest Church, Marcellus knelt before the metallic statue, his hands clasped together in prayer. "O Aurea, grant me your strength," he intoned, his voice reverent. "With your power, I will transform this world into a thing of beauty." Minutes passed, but Marcellus remained steadfast in his faith. He was a man of conviction, and he believed that his God would answer his prayers. Suddenly, he realized that Aurelia was nowhere to be seen. His mind immediately went to the treasure, and the mask that he so desperately coveted. "Damn it, Aurelia better not have run off with my treasure," he muttered, his voice laced with obsession. "The mask is mine, and mine alone." Determined to uncover the truth, Marcellus set off towards the forest outskirts, where Aurelia was last seen. He was a man on a mission, and nothing would stand in his way. As he walked, his mind raced with thoughts of the mask, and the power it could bring him. He was a man consumed by his own desires, and he would stop at nothing to satisfy them. He remained focused on his goal, his heart filled with greed and his mind clouded by his own ambition. As Marcellus approached his sister's house, he couldn't help but notice the gaping hole in the ground, with thick vines covering the entrance. He knew something was wrong. With his senses heightened, he cautiously made his way through the hole, only to find his sister Aurelia tied up and badly bruised, lying unconscious on the ground. And standing over her, with a blade to her neck, was the Death Knight. Anger and fear consumed Marcellus as he demanded to know what was going on. Who are you?" he shouted at the Death Knight. "What did you do to Aurelia?" The Death Knight stood motionless, not uttering a word as it pressed the blade harder against Aurelia's throat, drawing blood. Marcellus could feel his heart pounding in his chest as the realization hit him. This was serious. "What is it that you want?" he asked, trying to remain calm. "You must want something." "I want your life," came a chilling voice from behind him. Marcellus turned around to see light emerging from the shadows. Marcellus's eyes widened as he caught a glimpse of the mask he had been desperately seeking. His heart raced with excitement and his magical power began to surge, fueled by his anger and obsession. With a snarl, he lunged towards Light, demanding the return of what was rightfully his. But Light was unfazed by Marcellus's aggression. He coolly revealed the truth: the mask had never belonged to Marcellus in the first place. And as Marcellus watched in horror, Light slowly unsheathed his scythe, a weapon that glinted menacingly in the dim light. Marcellus's grip on reality began to slip as he realized that the mask was now permanently attached to Light's skin. His desperation turned to madness as he lunged towards Light, determined to claim the mask by any means necessary. But Light was ready, and he met Marcellus's attack with a fierce grin of malice. "If you want it," he bellowed, "you'll have to peel it off of me." The air crackled with tension as the two opponents faced each other, their powers surging and their eyes locked in a deadly stare. The room was filled with an eerie silence as Marcellus lunged forward with his spear, his eyes blazing with fury. In response, Light sprang back with incredible speed, wielding his scythe with effortless grace. Marcellus' spear missed its target as Light sidestepped with ease, leaving behind only an afterimage of himself. The clash of their weapons echoed throughout the battlefield as they moved at a dizzying pace. Marcellus swung his spear in a wide arc, but Light was already on the move, twirling his scythe with incredible speed and agility. The blade of Light's scythe flashed through the air with deadly precision, narrowly missing Marcellus' head. The two warriors continued to exchange blows, their movements becoming faster and more frenzied as the battle wore on. Marcellus parried a thrust from Light's scythe, then spun around with a roundhouse kick that Light barely managed to dodge. In response, Light countered with a rapid series of slashes that Marcellus barely managed to block with his spear. Their battle continued in a blur of motion, their weapons moving so fast that they were barely visible to the naked eye. It was like watching a dance, but one that was infused with a deadly intensity. The sound of steel striking steel was almost deafening, and it seemed as though the entire world had been reduced to the two of them and the struggle they were engaged in. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the two warriors separated, both panting and covered in sweat. Marcellus stared at Light with a mix of admiration and anger, while Light regarded him with a cool, detached gaze. Neither of them spoke, but the message was clear: the battle was far from over. Marcellus narrowed his eyes and held out his hand, summoning the power of the vines around him. In a flash of green light, the vines twisted and writhed, coalescing into a pair of deadly spears. "I'm done playing games," he growled, and with a sudden surge of energy, he charged at Light, his spears flashing in the dim light. Light tensed, his muscles coiling as he prepared to defend himself against Marcellus's onslaught. The first few strikes were easy enough to dodge, but as Marcellus began to swing his spears faster and faster, Light found himself struggling to keep up. Suddenly, Marcellus's vine spear began to change shape, the blade becoming sharper and smaller, slicing through Light's defenses with ease. Light grunted in pain as he felt the sharp vines cut into his flesh, but he refused to give up. With a fierce determination, Light focused all his energy on evading Marcellus's attacks. He darted and weaved, using his shadow evasion and shadow step to stay one step ahead of the deadly vines. But just when he thought he had a moment of respite, Marcellus slammed his vine spear into the ground, and the vines began to burrow underground, tracking Light's every movement. With a sudden burst of energy, Light leapt into the air, narrowly avoiding the vines shooting up from the ground. But as he landed, Marcellus's vine spear changed shape yet again, becoming a deadly spike that impaled the ground. For a moment, the two combatants stood locked in a deadly dance, their weapons clashing and sparking as they fought for dominance. But with a sudden surge of energy, Marcellus thrust his vine spear forward, sending a wave of sharp spikes hurtling towards Light. With a fierce determination, Light dodged and weaved, narrowly avoiding the deadly spikes. But as he did, he saw Marcellus's vine spear begin to glow with an eerie green light, and he knew he was in trouble. With a sudden burst of energy, Marcellus slammed his vine spear into the ground, and the vines began to writhe and twist once more. This time, they formed a deadly needles, a network of vines that shot up from the ground, slicing pieces of Light's flesh. Marcellus effortlessly deactivated the vines that had ensnared him, prompting a flicker of admiration from Light. "Your skill is impressive, Marcellus," he said, his voice tinged with surprise. "I underestimated you." As Light used his shadow mending ability to recover his lost HP and MP, his expression shifted from frustration to a devious grin. Memories of his past adventures with Aurora, of the playful banter that had passed between them, flooded his mind. The surge of emotion fueled his growing anger, and he felt an aura of malevolent energy begin to emanate from his body. With his scythe in hand, Light's words dripped with malice as he addressed Marcellus. "Your soul shall be tormented, Marcellus. You will never find the peace." His eyes flashed with a deadly light, and his voice took on a chilling tone. "I will cut through your spirit with my scythe, and you will know the true meaning of suffering." The air around them crackled with tension as the two combatants squared off. Light's form seemed to blur and shift, his movements becoming almost ethereal as he prepared to strike. Marcellus, for his part, remained calm and focused, his eyes fixed on his opponent. In the silence that followed, the only sound was the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze. Then, with a sudden surge of energy, Light launched himself at Marcellus, his scythe whistling through the air. The clash of metal on metal echoed through the clearing, as the two fighters continued engaging in a deadly dance of blades. Marcellus was losing more ground and felt weak after his vine spear. While fighting he prayed to his god for divine help, but still nothing. As Light quickly became aware of Marcellus' weakness, he quickly maneuvered his way by turning his scythe and balanced his body onto the scythe where he held his weight on and kicked his enemy with sheer force. As Marcellus lay helpless against a tree, blood seeping from his wounds, he cried out to the heavens for Oria's divine intervention. Light, his assailant, mocked him with callous laughter and approached with a grin of triumph. But Marcellus refused to give up hope, and with renewed determination, he invoked the power of his deity once more. As he lifted his hand, an ominous surge of magic coursed through his veins, and he summoned forth his vine spear. But this time, something was different. The spear took on a metallic sheen, and its movements became more rigid and difficult to control. As Marcellus stood up and assumed a battle stance, old metal fragments, relics of a long-forgotten civilization, began to emerge from the ground, coiling around his body and forming a Trojan helmet around his head. With a fierce battle cry, Marcellus unleashed his new form Aurelian metamorphosis upon Light, the metal vines serving as both armor and weapon. It was as though the power of the ancient civilization had been imbued within him, granting him the strength and skill to vanquish his foe. The fight between Light and Marcellus was a clash of titanic proportions, their powers colliding in a whirlwind of chaos. Light, fueled by his elegant yet dark and psychotic nature, unleashed a flurry of scythe techniques, each strike executed with precision and a hint of madness. He desperately sought an opening, a weakness to exploit in Marcellus's relentless assault. But Marcellus, lost in his berserk state, proved to be a formidable adversary. His great sword, infused with divine energy, cut through the air with devastating force. Light's waves of energy were effortlessly deflected by Marcellus's metallic vines, leaving him no room to breathe. With an explosive charge, Marcellus closed the distance between them, his sword glowing ominously. Light's agility saved him from the initial strike, but Marcellus relentlessly pursued, his onslaught unyielding. The clash of their powers echoed through the battlefield, their movements a dance of destruction. Light's scythe twirled and slashed, each swing a calculated display of his unique skills. But Marcellus proved to be an impenetrable wall, parrying each strike with ease. Light's energy waned as the battle wore on, his fatigue becoming evident. The metallic vines of Marcellus's armory coiled around Light, restricting his movements and leaving him vulnerable. Struggling against their grip, Light attempted to dodge, but their numbers overwhelmed him. They tightened their hold, constricting his breath as Marcellus closed in for the final blow. With a fierce roar, Marcellus hoisted Light into the air, the vines securing their captive tightly. A surge of divine power surged through Marcellus's veins, infusing him with an unstoppable force. In a bone-shattering impact, he slammed Light into the ground, the earth trembling beneath the sheer force of the attack. Light lay there, his body battered and broken, gasping for precious breath. Marcellus stood over him, his divine power still coursing through him, victorious in his berserk state. The battle had come to a devastating conclusion, leaving Light helpless in the face of Marcellus's overwhelming might. As Light's consciousness began to fade away, he couldn't help but laugh at the irony of his Death Knight and skeleton soldier still active. It was a strange sight in his final moments, lying in a pool of his own blood. As he closed his eyes, a sense of familiarity engulfed him, as if he was returning home to the abyss. But to his surprise, his distorted self appeared before him, emanating disappointment. The distorted self spoke, its voice as warped as its appearance, "We meet again, and you still cling to your humanity. Embrace your true power, cast off your human shackles, and let darkness consume you." Light focused his thoughts on harnessing his dark power, memories of being dissected, used, and feeling helpless flooding his mind. An inferno of darkness engulfed his skin, and within the recesses of his mind, his eyes opened wide. The whites turned black while his crimson irises glared defiantly at his distorted self. Smiling, the distorted self uttered, its voice warped and unsettling, "Make your enemies one with the abyss, assimilate them into your darkness." Gradually, a surge of dark magical power emanated from Scavenger Village and the surrounding areas. Light's revival cocooned his body in darkness, and as he emerged, dark flames engulfed him, casting a shadow that revealed a horrifying beast. His transformation complete, Light's powers intensified, and he reveled in his newfound strength. "Light, revived, now, witness the true extent of my power. I am reborn, a being of elegance and psychopathy, an embodiment of slaughter. No longer shall I be bound by feeble morality. The world shall tremble before me, as I bathe it in darkness and revel in its agony." With a mere thought, the dark fire under Light's control burned through Marcellus' metal vines effortlessly, creating a massive shift in the battle's balance. The fight between Light and Marcellus intensified, each unleashing devastating attacks upon the other. Their clash shook the earth, sending shock waves rippling through the surroundings. Marcellus, fueled by a mix of rage and desperation, struggled to withstand Light's overwhelming might. Despite his best efforts, he found himself on the defensive, his armor battered and cracked under the relentless assault. But as the battle neared its end, Marcellus found himself on his knees, his armor shattered and his body badly beaten. In his weakened state, memories of a simpler time flooded his mind. Marcellus reminisced about the days when he, his sister Aurelia, and their friend Jax played together as children, despite their impoverished existence in Scavenger Village. They found ways to survive, resorting to theft and cunning. These memories momentarily gripped Marcellus, even as he snapped back to the present, his impending demise looming. In a last desperate plea, Marcellus managed to utter a request, his voice strained and filled with desperation. He asked if Light would spare his sister, hoping for a glimmer of mercy. Light, displaying his true malevolence, responded with chilling indifference, "Worry not, for both of you shall soon become one with me. Your sister will find no escape from my grasp, for darkness knows no mercy." And with those words, Light embraced his wickedness, reveling in the suffering he would inflict upon Aurelia and all who dared to oppose him. Light, fueled by his newfound power, channeled the depths of his dark abilities, invoking the dreaded skill known as Black Hellfire, A. With a sinister grace, he infused his scythe with malevolent energy, its wicked blade pulsating with an aura of pure terror. A chilling smile crept across his face as he took aim, honing in on Marcellus's heart with unnerving precision. In an instant, the unholy flames of the black hellfire consumed Marcellus's body from within, a relentless inferno that devoured his very essence. The intense heat seared through his flesh, reducing him to mere ashes, drifting away on a macabre wind. The air grew heavy with silence as Light, surrounded by the acrid scent of charred remains, reveled in the aftermath of his ruthless victory. His eyes, now glinting with a deranged delight, shifted toward Aurelia, the last thread of Marcellus's former life. With an air of perverse satisfaction, Light commanded his Death Knight, a servant ever loyal to his dark whims. "Sever the ties of their wretched existence," he uttered, his voice carrying a bone-chilling edge. A swift and deadly strike, the Death Knight severed Aurelia's head from her body. The sound of metal on flesh echoed through the air as her lifeless body fell to the ground, a pool of blood spreading out around her. The very air thick with the stench of death, and yet for Light, it was just another step on the path to true power, a testament to the depths of darkness that he was willing to embrace in order to achieve his goals. As Light reveled in his newfound power, his laughter echoed throughout the desolate battlefield. He was eager to test the limits of his abilities and continue his ascent to greater heights. System notification, achievement unlocked, Cruel Conqueror. Description: by subjugating your enemies and bending them to your will, you have demonstrated an innate ability to dominate and control. Embrace your darker nature and let your power grow. Reward: gain an additional 10% experience when defeating enemies through fear or intimidation. System notification, achievement unlocked, Master of the Damned. Description: through necromancy, you have proven your mastery over life and death. Raise your undead army and march forth to conquer the living. Reward: increase the maximum number of Death Knights and Skeleton Mages you can control by 3. With these achievements, Light felt even more empowered. He was ready to face any challenge that lay ahead, with his loyal subordinates by his side. Light, with his elegant yet psychotic demeanor, turned his attention to Marcellus's lifeless body. As my loyal servant, it is only fitting that you bear a name befitting your new form, he said, his voice cold and calculating. With a flick of his wrist, Light prepared to name his new Death Knight. But first, he needed to raise Marcellus from the dead. Transcend! Light commanded, and a surge of dark energy flooded Marcellus's corpse, causing Light's body to stumble back. Why is his revival? Light's words were cut short as darkness enveloped his vision. Through the impenetrable darkness, Light bore witness to Marcellus's memories. He saw the struggles Marcellus faced to protect his sister, Aurelia, and their friend Jax, stealing for them when they were hungry and building a tent for them when the weather was unbearable. He watched as Marcellus became the village chief, using his cunning to improve Scavenger Village. But with good deeds came evil intentions. Marcellus had struck a deal with the Iron Wolf bandits after killing their leader, allowing them to do as they pleased as long as they followed his rule. He manipulated Jax into becoming a leader in the Iron Wolf, pulling the strings from the shadows and sealing Jax's fate with his own nefarious deeds. As for his sister, Marcellus forced her to learn more about plants, leading her to develop a sadistic streak as she lied to her patients, worsening their symptoms instead of helping them. As these memories swirled around Light in the darkness, Marcellus's soul reached out. "I will atone for my sins by serving you, Master," he said while kneeling. Light regarded the penitent soul before him. "Your memories prove your sins, but your actions show your strength. I promise you that in my care, you will have powers beyond your comprehension. Raise your head, prove your loyalty. Name, ? Level ranked 3. 1. Skill, Pierce C. Wolf Dance Divine Control, D. Divine Infusion E. System, due to its rank name, this Death Knight. Light named his new Death Knight Wolfsbane. As the name etched itself deep into Wolfsbane's soul, he struggled to speak, his words disjointed and broken. "I obey your command." Light, proud of his creation, responded, "I promised you that your sister would be with you. Now let me keep that promise." He ordered his other Death Knight to pick up Aurelia's body and place it gently at his feet. With a single word, transcend, Aurelia arose from the dead. Unlike Wolfsbane, her rebirth was subtle, and she did not possess the same level of intelligence. However, she retained her mastery over vines, which set her apart from the other undead. Name, Skeleton Mage Aurelia, Level 1, Skill, Vine Wall, E, but there was still much to learn about the system and his ever-growing powers. As he delved deeper into the notifications and information presented before him, Light knew that his quest for ultimate power had only just begun. The system's voice resonated within Light's mind, its tone embodying an icon-like detachment. Each of your subordinates possesses levels that indicate their skill progression. While some may not acquire a skill, others, like the Skeleton Mage, obtain abilities through fortuitous circumstances. As their levels increase, they have the potential to evolve and ascend in rank, progressing through the 7 ranks as they reach specific levels. Light contemplated the system's explanation and responded, acknowledging the logic behind it. "I suppose it is a comprehensible system, one that aligns with the unpredictable nature of my plans." Turning his attention to his notifications, Light delved into their contents, eager to savor the rewards that awaited him. Notification: defeated the Iron Wolf leader. Reward: Nightfall Rampage. Rank: X. Description: when the player becomes consumed by a rage, he can unleash his ultimate ability, Nightfall Rampage. With this devastating power, he envelops the sky within a 20-kilometer radius in a shroud of impenetrable darkness, creating an atmosphere filled with chaos and foreboding. Light's enemies find themselves blind in the darkness, while Light himself possesses perfect clarity, enabling him to unleash devastating attacks with lethal precision. Effect: during Nightfall Rampage, the player experiences a tremendous surge in power and speed, granting him the ability to move and strike with lightning-like agility. His attacks become infused with the formidable power of darkness, dealing devastating damage to any unfortunate enemy caught in his path. Cooldown: due to the immense power required to unleash Nightfall Rampage, the user is compelled to rest and recover for several hours before he can harness this ability once more. Light's laughter reverberated through the air, tinged with evil delight as he beheld the reward bestowed upon him. Nightfall Rampage. Truly a prize too enticing to resist. A sinister smile stretched across his face as he contemplated the mechanics of the reward. Though the cooldown may not be substantial, the sheer magnitude of power granted by Nightfall Rampage makes it a worthy price to pay. The devastating might it bestows upon me is simply exhilarating. He savored the moment, relishing in the darkness that coursed through his veins, venturing back to Scavenger Village. In Scavenger Village, Guard 1 stood at the front gate, speaking to his fellow guard. "Have you noticed that there's been rarely any sightings of the Iron Wolf bandits lately? It's as if they disappeared." Guard 2 nodded. "It is strange, but at least the village is more peaceful. Now we just have to worry about the surrounding monsters. Even though they were pieces of shit, they did still help our monster situation. We don't have the manpower to defend against the monsters ourselves." Guard 1 sighed. "It's another thing we just have to deal with. Has anyone seen Marcellus lately? He hasn't been in the temple, and no one can find Aurelia as well. The villagers are starting to panic." Guard 2 furrowed his brow. "I know, but what can we do? There isn't a lot of guards to calm them down as it is, and now we don't have a leader. It's making our structure weak. We need to see if the mercenary guild knows anything." As Guard 1 was just about to respond, they felt a magical presence coming their way. The evil presence sank into their very core. As it got closer, they noticed that it was someone they recognized, accompanied by 4 skeleton beings. Guard 1 stammered, Light, what happened to you? Why do you look so? What is that mask on your face?" Light glanced at the mask. "Oh, this? It's nothing. But I need you guys to let me pass through." Both of the guards looked at each other, then back at Light. Guard 2 spoke up, sweat forming on his brow. "I'm sorry, but we can't let you in. And not with those monsters behind you. Hold on. Is that a body one of them is carrying?" They readied their swords, fear in their eyes. They saw Auri's lifeless body held by a skeleton soldier. Guard 1's voice shook. "What did you do? I thought Aura was your friend. We cannot let you in the village." Before the guard could speak further, Light used his killing intent, which shook the guards to their very core. "Let me in," he demanded, causing the guards to fall to their knees, too scared to hold their weapons. Light swiftly opened the door, entering the village. Inside, the villagers were discussing the mysterious disappearance of Marcellus, the village chief, and Aurelia, the village nurse. Villager 1 whispered, "Where could they have gone? It's not like them to just vanish." Villager 2 agreed. "I'm worried. What if something terrible has happened to them?" Their murmurs came to an abrupt halt when they felt a dreadful presence. Even Ravenna, in her office, could feel it. Ravenna's eyes widened. "What in the God's name is this presence? It feels like Light but darker." Rose and Dante, at the reception desks, also noticed the unusual quiet. "Why is it so quiet outside?" Rose asked. Dante shrugged. "How should I know? If you're so curious, go check it out yourself." Ravenna joined them in the conversation. We will all go outside and see what's going on. I feel Light is already in the village, but something is wrong. Rose's eyes lit up. Wait, Light's back? Aurori must be with him. I'll go say hi. Eager to see her friends, Rose rushed through the crowd of villagers, followed by Dante and Ravina. But when she saw Light's changed appearance, his 4 undead companions, and Aurora's lifeless body, her heart broke. Dante and Ravina looked just as shocked as Rose. Light addressed the crowd, his voice cold and hard. You've all been lied to. Marcellus was the true mastermind behind the Iron Wolf bandits, and he made his sister Aurelia help him in his scheme. The villagers, along with Rose, Dante, and Ravina, were shocked and skeptical about Light's revelation. Villager 3 shook their head. That can't be true. Marcellus has been taking care of us for years. Villager 4 chimed in, anger rising in their voice. And Aurelia is our only nurse, she's saved so many lives. How can you say such things? As the murmurs of disbelief and anger grew louder, it became apparent that the villagers did not believe Light's words. Villager 5 shouted, You've gone mad, Light. How dare you accuse our chief and nurse of such heinous acts? Ravina, trying to maintain order, raised her hands. Everyone, please, let's try to understand what's going on. Light, is there any proof to your claims? Light, frustrated with everyone's disbelief, infused his killing intent and magical power with his voice. Kneel, and listen, he commanded, forcing everyone to their knees helplessly. Ravina was the only one who could struggle to move. I have proof of Marcellus's evil deeds, Light said with a smirk. He called out Wolfsbane to come by his side and explain to the villagers what had happened. Wolfsbane spoke slowly, pausing between each word. I was Marcellus until my master gave me greater power. His mercy allowed me to be reborn into the abyss and fight alongside him. I was the real mastermind behind the Iron Wolf, and I bade Aurelia to slowly poison the villagers, making them sicker, feeding our greed. The villagers, as well as Rose, Ravina, and Dante, were in disbelief. As they slowly started piecing together everything, they began to understand the truth. Villager 1 gasped, so all this time, we've been deceived? Villager 2 shook their head. To think that our own chief and nurse were the ones hurting us. It's unbelievable. Dante clenched his fists. It's hard to believe, but it all makes sense now. The increasing sickness, the Iron Wolf bandits. It was all a scheme. Rose's eyes filled with tears. How could they do this to us? We trusted them. Ravina looked at Light, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. If this is true, then we've been betrayed by the very people we trusted the most. But that doesn't mean we'll blindly follow you. We need to think about what's best for our village. Light, embracing his elegant yet psychotic and sadistic personality, addressed the villagers. I will be your new salvation. As long as you obey me, your lives will be peaceful, and prosperity will fall upon this village, so long as you all are my subjects. Bear witness to your God. With that, Light let out an overwhelming surge of his magical power, asserting his dominance and instilling fear in the villagers. Seeing no other choice, they submitted to Light's rule. Villager 3, trembling, said, We submit, Light. Please, lead us into a better future. Villager 4 added, We have no other choice. We hope you'll keep your promise and protect us. Ravina, representing the villagers, spoke up with a hint of reluctance. We will comply, Light. But know that we do this for the sake of our village, not out of blind loyalty. Rose and Dante exchanged worried glances, understanding that they had no choice but to follow Light for now. The villagers, along with Rose, Dante, and Ravina, accepted Light as their new ruler, hoping that his promise of prosperity and peace would come true. Yet they couldn't shake off the fear that lingered in their hearts, knowing that their new leader held such immense power and a twisted sense of justice. 31. The Rise of the False God.